that's why some of the items are informational, and if the future board wants to take a position on some of these items, they can, but right now we just felt as though let's just get familiar with what is going on. That said, and also I wanted to make the comment that as you can see, we've kind of reorganized things in that we had felt that in the past, I don't know if this is going to hold true for a while, but that we have made, let's say in project review, we've made applicants wait while we did our general parliamentary procedures and approval of things and government reports. And it just seemed as though we should potentially prioritize, I mean, we're not going to do it tonight, but letting those people that are coming for projects to come in and leave in a reasonable period of time without listening to some of our dirty laundry. Okay, that said, do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Or is that even proper? Okay, looks like Margaret said yes. And
I'll second.
all right, there we go. All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Go ahead. Somebody was it Mandy, you wanted to say something?
I think maybe it's easier, Brad, to ask who's opposed rather than trying to look through all these little screens. They did that yesterday at Midway,
right.
Which I just picked up on, and it's easier to count the no or the abstention.
Right. Is somebody saying no? David?
I'm not saying no, I'm just asking a question.
Sure.
It doesn't look like the entire board is here. Who isn't here?
Dawn.
I don't see Don. Is Mark here?
Mark's here.
Mark's over there.
Mark's here. Okay, so it's just Don.
Is Don the only one we're missing?
Yes.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So all in favor of the agenda?
Or I'm sorry. All not saying no. What do you want us to do?
Yes, it's affirmative. Yes. Are you in favor? Okay.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. All opposed? All right. Unanimous. Thank you very much. And then also we're to approve the minutes from February and June. I did have one question. I'm not, obviously as chair, I'm not going to be able to vote on this, but I had a question regarding the February minutes. And I just wanted to be clear about other people's memory of what transpired. But, and I'm not trying to be contentious here. I just want to, I just remembered it differently. I thought that the only thing that I thought was that we had discussed Robert and Scott resigning. Scott had said that he would be election chair. And his impression, I thought, was that he would stay on for the 48 hours after the election.
No.
I thought, well, that's why I'm bringing this up, because I just had a differing perspective on it, and I realized that
brought it up.
That others may have a different idea. But so I just wanted to just bring that up. That was my only question about the February minutes, is that my understanding was that Scott was willing to wait, that after it was pointed out that after the election, there would be a 48-hour period in case there was a complaint, and he was willing to stay on until that period was over, and then he would resign. So I don't know, does anybody agree or disagree with my recollection?
I disagree with your recollection, and I would also like to reference his resignation letter, where he also states that date at midnight as well. And I believe we had a concerted effort about the the actual contesting of the election and who would handle those complaints. And at that point, it was decided that the entire election committee, minus Scott, would be responsible to handle any contention or any issues regarding the election in those 48 hours. So the meetings stand as far as my understanding of what happened. That's how I feel. So.
And it's hard to remember because it was February, but I sort of remember it consistent with Mandy that Scott said that he was willing to do it, but because he had tendered his resignation effective at midnight, I think he was technically disqualified.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I remember that the same way that Fred and Mandy do. I thought he was going to be, once midnight hit, that he was separated from the board and wouldn't have any further functions
Right.
after that day.
Eva?
Yeah, that's my recollection as well.
Mm-hmm. One of the reasons that I brought it up is that I thought that because during the period of time that we were dark, I'm trying to remember that, because yes, it's been a long time. I know that Robert had effectively given it as of a date. I was under the impression that Scott was more event driven. And when I talked to him prior to last meeting in June, it's the only time that I spoke with Scott was sometime in June before the last meeting. He still thought he was election chair. So because the event had not taken place. And that's why I explained to him, Andy, that we were going to be getting together. That's why we were trying to do what we did last month, so we can get board officers that we would tonight, because the first vice chair's position is to be the election chair.
Yeah.
And at that point, he was like, oh, okay, I'm good with that. I said, we're just trying to replace you. So I just had a different election. So, and I can't vote anyway. So I just wanted to be clear on that. And I guess all in favor of approval. Anybody comment about the June minutes? They all good with that? All right. So all in favor of approval of both the February and June minutes?
You want hands?
Hands, please. Yes. Carla?
I have to abstain. I was absent in February. If you want to
That's right.
split them, I can vote on June. June is correct,
All
but
right.
it doesn't matter. They're approved.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so it's 11-0. So.
And
that
one
said-
abstention. Record the abstention.
All right. Yeah. Well then, yeah, 11-0 and 1. All right.
Actually, I wasn't there February either, so I don't know if you want me to abstain too, I guess.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, I can do them
Right
one
now.
at a time if you would prefer. I mean, that probably would be more accurate.
Whatever you guys want.
Probably
Is
better to do it that way.
All right. All right. Approval of the February minutes. Hands. Okay, 9. And abstentions? 2. And I guess nays, there's 0. All right, approval of the June minutes. Hands. All right, 11. 0. Nays, there aren't any. Okay, moving on to the election of our interim board officers. And
Shush.
Is that
Sorry, my dog has some inputs on it.
Yeah, vicious one. There.
Well, I would like-
Please, dog. What else?
Anybody
Next.
like to
I'm sorry.
make a motion on the chair?
I apologize. Sorry.
I'd like to
Okay.
nominate Fred.
Who said that?
I would like,
Oh, David did. David nominates Fred. Do we have, Fred, are you willing to be chair? Fred?
Mandy, can you put your thing on mute, please?
Okay, there. Well, this is my view on it, Brad. I think you've done a very good job, Brad. And I'd be happy if you wanted to continue. But it's my understanding is that you would rather not continue as chair. And I think it's important that we get somebody that can work with everybody on the board. And so if I was chair, it's obviously up to the board, but I'm willing to do it and make a pledge to work with everybody in good faith on the board.
I think that you would probably received, I don't know, I would prefer not to be the chair. I have been for a little while.
Let me just say it. You've done an excellent job, Brad. Thank you so much.
Well,
And we can't thank you enough.
Thank you all
And
for
I
saying
completely
that. I
agree with
appreciate
that.
it.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
I was just surprised on how much the chair has to do. And then also, I think, Fred, that you would be, I think, accepted more by the board as a neutral arbitrator, I think. That's just my perception that.
Are there, before we get into discussion, is there any other nominations?
Mandy, stand up.
I'd like to nominate Mandy Havlik for chair.
Yeah, and I would like to accept that nomination if you would have me. I do feel like I can better serve the community and bring a diverse viewpoint to our Peninsula community. So I would like to have the opportunity to serve as chair of the board as well, if Fred is not able to. But if not, I would be interested in being a co-chair and get the experience as well in that capacity as well to serve our community.
So should we?
Do we have two
Anybody else?
candidates?
Anybody else? So should we?
Do we have two candidates?
Looks as though we have two candidates. I guess we'll call the
Cast a vote.
question. All in favor of Fred as chair?
Hold on.
Raise your hands.
Can we have a discussion about this first before we
Okay.
get into it?
That would be fine.
Because Mandy had brought up a concept of a co-chair, which we've never had before. So I'm wondering, is that a possibility for our group, or does our bylaws only regulate that we could have a chair and a vice chair?
Well, I mean, the vice chair effectively could be a co-chair, right?
Well, they
There's nothing in
already,
there's no provision in the bylaws for a co-chair.
Right.
there is no provision. So
No.
it's something that we can't have. Is that what you're saying, David?
There's no provision for it, and so I would,
Let me clarify. I'm saying I would like to go for like second chair, not co-chair. So that's what I'm saying. If I don't receive the main chairship here for the board, I would be happy to serve as second chair. So.
Okay. All right. And tonight we're going to vote for chair, vice chair, second vice chair, secretary, and treasury, right? Those are the
Right.
whole board?
Well, and also to some degree, at least we have to have project review has got to get started again, right?
Yeah,
those
committees will
those
come after that.
committees, yeah,
At least
committees
that
are-
one.
Okay.
I don't know about what other subcommittees would be appropriate, but
All
that
right.
one certainly seems to be the right one that we should be talking about too. But that will be up for the next chair to decide.
Yeah, and this chair is going to serve as an interim chair, meaning if he's going to be or she's going to be there till we actually have an election period, or we go through the current cycle up until April and then we re-vote, because we never put a sunset
I think your
clause
point's
on
well
the
taken,
length of
Mark.
the appointment, right?
right?
Oh,
I think
actually,
it-
didn't we have an agreement when we had our June meeting that the interim board members would remain until there was an election? And
Yeah,
at that point in time, with the new board in place, whether that's before next March or
yeah.
next
or
March,
after. Yeah,
then there would be an election for new officers that would be permanent.
Agreed.
All we're doing right now is we're electing interim officers to serve until there can be an election, a new board comprised, and then new officers elected.
Okay. And the last thing I have is in the past, and I didn't know how we could pull this off, but we've done it before in the past where it was an open vote where we raised our hands, or we had a silent vote where we passed around something and put names in it, which would be impossible at this point. So I think we should just go with the simple fact of raising our hand.
If you guys are uncomfortable with if you're uncomfortable with public voting and that's not how we normally do it for officers, you could send a chat to me or Brad and we could vote that way and it would be semi-private.
No,
I actually think our bylaws require that the voting be public.
that's right.
Okay.
David is correct.
Just to clarify that issue, I think that, Mark, is that I think there's a secret ballot when you do a vacancy, or I don't know, I have to look at the bylaws. I think
Right.
it's the vacancy, and that's when we've done a secret ballot.
Right.
Very good.
Discussion over. Anybody else have anything to say? All right. All those in favor of Fred Cosmo as chair, raise their hand. All right. What is that, 8?
I'm sorry, who is Elizabeth voting?
She's a community member and Elizabeth, I'm sorry, you don't have voting privileges. This is board action.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't clear. I just want to make sure we get
Kind
accurate
of
count.
throw that off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Hands up again. Sorry, everyone. You're right, screen to screen. So 1, 2, 3. Eva, is your hand up? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 for Fred. All those opposed?
Not opposed. It's
No.
Okay, well then just for Mandy.
Just me. I don't know why. But.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, David. Appreciate the point. All those in favor of Mandy as chair? 1, 2, 3. All right. It would appear Fred Cosmo is the new chair, interim chair of the Pensinsula Community Planning Board. Thank you very much, Fred. I turn the reins over to this organization to you, sir.
Well, Fred, I make a motion for me to become second chair of the board.
Yeah, well, again, I thank everybody for showing confidence in me, and I do think we actually do have a really good board, and if we work together, I think we can do good to protect the community. But so yeah, I think that the nominations for the first vice chair, and I have Mandy. Does anybody else want to nominate somebody? I've got David and Brad. David?
Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Brad.
I just wanted to make a comment that first vice chair's responsibility is also that of election chair per our bylaws. So just to let you know that that's also something that.
I read the bylaws and I'm aware of that rule. So I'm aware of that role. Thank you, Brad.
I just wanted to.
And the other thing, Mandy, is I serve as first vice chair. You get, if I'm out, not that we travel anymore, but in the old days I did have to go to depositations out of town. But if I'm gone, then you get to run the meeting.
I'm up for the challenge, Fred, and I look forward. Hopefully, I get it. I look forward to working with you.
Right. And you're part of sort of the executive board.
Yes, I'm
I'd
aware.
like to nominate myself.
All right,
And
David.
Okay, Mandy and David.
Do we have any other nominations for first vice chair? Okay, I do not see any. Do we want to have any board discussion? Okay, seeing none. Corla, can you have a vote?
What?
You call for it? I can call for it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you call
let's
it.
start. Count, all those in favor of Mandy for first vice chair. 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 4. and all those in favor of David as first vice chair? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I count 6. So it appears that David has been elected as the first vice chair.
Well, I make a motion for the third chair. If you'll have me, huh?
All right, we are going to move to the second vice chair, and I'm going to
Yeah.
start by having Mandy nominated. Do we have any other nominations for the second vice chair?
Well, Brad's done such a great job. I don't know if he's in for anything or not, but I was thinking maybe Brad might have wanted to do that if he's willing. You're on mute, Brad.
Sorry, it's used to the mute being off permanently. I would do second vice chair only because I know how much I think that this group needs to spread out the workload, and I would be willing to. And also, since there are 4 months worth of things that I have in my inbox and have talked to Mark about, and people that I need to contact. I mean, I think that I would be willing to get that stuff sorted out by incapacity as second vice chair.
All right.
So yes, I'd be willing
that
to
is
do
Brad accepting the nomination.
Thank
So I have Mandy and Brad nominated for the second vice chair position. Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing any, is there any discussion that anybody wants to have? All right. We will start. How many votes do we have for Mandy as second vice chair? I count 3.
Margaret needs to vote, so
Oh, count, okay, 4.
who else is?
Okay. How many votes do we have for Brad?
We know where Eva stands.
Sarah, 1, 2, I guess I got 6. Is that right? So Brad, you have been elected as the second vice chair. And then I think we also have the treasurer position and the secretary. So why don't we do treasurer first?
I nominate Corla.
I'll continue I'll continue unless somebody really wants it.
And just to clarify, Corla, you're currently the treasurer, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other nominations besides Corla for treasurer? All right. All those in favor of Corla continuing as a treasurer, please raise your hand. It appears to be unanimous. Oh, like 10 for Corla. All right, and then secretary, and I believe that Sarah is currently the secretary. So do we have any nominations for secretary?
I nominate Sarah.
Can't be the fuck.
I have a question about David Dick. Again, is this all interim up until the next election? Everything is, even though he's a candidate, he can still be on the
I'm not a candidate.
executive or on the interim?
Andy, I'm not a candidate.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I apologize. Never mind. You're correct.
Okay. Sarah, will you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Good. Enthusiasm. I like to see that. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Okay. All those in favor of Sarah as a secretary? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sarah, you gonna vote for yourself? 9, 10. I think we have 10 for Sarah.
I didn't know if I could. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Of course, you can always vote for yourself.
So I guess that I was wondering, I think that we should, subject if everybody else is in favor, but we should nominate people to be chairs of various committees so that we can start, I mean, it seems like we haven't done anything since February. And, there's a lot of work in the community that we need to represent people. So, and certainly people have identified things like project review, but, all the committees are important. And so that's my recommendation, is that we go forward and we nominate people to be the chairs of the various committees. I just throw that out, make sure. Mandy, do you have a comment?
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to become the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Chair if Brad is no longer interested in serving in that capacity.
Well, I'm going to go through all the committees, but.
Oh, sorry.
But we can. Let me see, committees. All right, so I was actually going to start with project review because I think that that's probably the one that we need to fill first. So unless people, but we'll go through each one of them, and traffic will be one of them. So do we have anybody do we need to nominate somebody, or somebody want to volunteer to be the chair of project review? Mark?
Dude, thanks.
Okay, I will volunteer for one more time here as project review chair. And I appreciate everybody's participation.
Okay, do we have anybody else that's interested in being the chair of the project review committee?
Who's more qualified? Jeez.
Yeah, well, okay, so all those in favor of Mark as the chair of the project review committee? Yay! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, unanimous. And I think let's do all the elections, but then I'd just like to run through it. I don't know if you want, or sometimes we've at the board meeting we've asked people who want to volunteer to be on the committee. So I don't know if you want to just do that right now. If there's,
I think we should.
With Mark on project review, do you want to raise your hand so that Mark knows who's on his committee?
I'll be back on there.
Okay, Mark, I see Lucky, Robert, and Brad.
And the community can be involved in this if Mark chooses. If a community member wants to be on, they need to submit a resume to him, and then he approves the resume, or he brings that back to the board approves. Anybody can attend, but to be an actual member, that's the process for community.
Mark, are you going to continue to have your meetings in the afternoons on weekdays?
I had thought that I'd probably move it back later in the afternoon now, since we're all doing this, this Zoom meeting type stuff. But I was still thinking starting at like 3:30, if that would be okay for everybody. I didn't want to push it into the evening though, but we could. I just know it gets hot in the afternoon, late in the afternoon. So, I mean, I was thinking 3:30, to start.
Okay.
I'll send an email out and ask everybody if that's okay with everybody, just to get a feel for it.
So, Corla, were you?
So who was on that? Brad, you were on too, and who else?
I'd raised my hand, Lucky, and I think Robert.
Lucky, Brad, and Robert.
I'm sorry, where are we on?
We're on project review.
Oh, project review, okay, sorry.
And if there are any board members that are interested in participating.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I was going to go to long range. Oh, and I wanted to follow up on Corla's statement, but I think that is exactly how it works, is that we form the committee, we get the board members, and then it's up to each committee if they want to add community members, and then, you can vet them and then bring them back to the board and put them up for approval. So I would encourage people to do that, get the community involved.
And I encourage them to attend as well. And, I think a lot of our candidates that we had from our non-existing election are interested in participating. I think they would like to be on some of these committees. It would be a good role for them to achieve. So
I agree. I think that's an excellent suggestion. So yeah, people that are interested in serving on the board, that's a great way to see what we actually do, right? As opposed to, right, when we actually do some real work to get something done. So good way to be involved. All right, so next I have long range planning. So Do we have anybody that's interested in volunteering to be the chair of long-range planning?
I nominate Jim Hare since he's so vested and involved in the current situation.
I very much appreciate that, but I'm going to decline.
What?
I think there's an opportunity here for someone else to grow in that position, and my appointment as a board member is interim anyway. So the way we had done business at Long Range Planning was to formulate plans and try and go through priorities as the year goes on. And under an interim appointment, I don't know that that's a stewardship that I should take on. So someone who's looking at continuing to being on the board or running for a board seat for reelection, I'm more than happy to support them being the chairman of the committee, but I'd like to decline at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm disappointed, Jim, but I understand. So is there somebody else who is interested in taking a leadership role and becoming the chair of long range planning?
I mean, I think Margaret could do it. Margaret is pretty involved. Margaret, would you want to do that?
Only if I had some of the existing members, Corla and Cameron and a few others, Lucky, come back on to help.
Well, Lucky and other board members.
I need some seasoned veterans under my belt.
I'd like to be on the long range board.
And Margaret, you can count on me to assist you in terms of setting up and everything and getting matters launched. I'm delighted to work with you on that.
Okay, and that helps.
And provide some background for you and things of that nature.
No, because I know it's a lot.
You can count on me at any time. Absolutely.
Okay, then I would gladly accept if I get Jim's help and Corla and a couple other seasoned veterans.
No, I'll be on the committee.
Okay, good. All right, then I'll gladly accept. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, all those in favor of having Margaret be the chair of long range planning, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, unanimous, Margaret.
Oh.
And Cameron is also a former member, so community-wise, we'll keep him in the loop on that.
Yeah, he doesn't need to resubmit.
Who are the members then? It's Jim and Carla. Anyone else?
Let's have a show of hands. Who's willing to help Margaret on long range planning?
Please, I need all of you. Thank you, Jim.
I've got Jim Hare and Lucky and Corla.
Awesome.
I will too.
Who was the last one?
Robert.
Robert. Okay.
Oh, Robert. Okay.
Oh, good. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Robert.
Okay. Next up, traffic and transportation. I think we have a nomination of Mandy for traffic and chair. Do we have anybody else who's interested in being the chair of traffic and transportation? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of Mandy being the chair of traffic and transportation?
Good luck, Mandy.
I think that's unanimous. You got it, Mandy.
Thank you.
And with that, are there board members that are willing to serve on traffic and transportation with Mandy?
Me.
Margaret?
Yes, please.
Okay, you're on. Any others?
I will too.
Sarah? Okay.
Yay, Sarah. We need it. It's a good one, guys. It's important.
All right, looking at the list of committees, I now have the airport committee. And
Fred.
I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it.
That's you.
I agree with Margaret. I think Fred I'd like to see you continue to advocate for our community in regards to the airport.
Okay, I'm happy to do it. Is anybody else interested in being chair of the airport committee? Okay, all those in favor of me being chair of the airport committee? All right, we got that as a unanimous too. Any board members want to volunteer to work on the airport committee? I got Margaret and David. And I will just say as an aside on the airport is that, because we've had this lull, and I didn't get to make a report, but I think you guys should know is that when everything hit in COVID, the FAA decided to change the flight patterns because there was not much traffic, and they started flying planes in places they didn't normally fly them. And because I got reports that I could see that when I was walking my dog, and I got some community complaints. I made a formal complaint to the airport and to the FAA, and it got fully investigated. And the FAA admitted that they were not following the proper flight plans, and as a result of that, we actually got the system to work, and the planes went back on the normal flight schedule. So there's no doubt that our community made a difference in that. So
you're the guy that sent them back over my house, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brad, I can tell you one thing for sure. No matter how few planes there are, there's still one at 6:30 and there's still one at 11:30.
You got it.
That's right.
Our position clearly at that is that, well, 6:30 is when they start, and they should have no early turns. They should have no curfew violations. They really, with the amount of traffic they have now, they really should be able to follow the rules. So. All right. Let's go. We have Liberty Station. I don't know if we haven't really appointed anybody for Liberty Station. I don't think. Do we need to appoint somebody as a Liberty Station liaison?
I think it was David Dick.
It was, but I'd be willing. I think Don had some interest in it, but he's not here. That's why I'd asked earlier. But maybe Don would be interested. I know he was
He only wants Park, David.
He only wants Parks. Okay. I'd be happy to continue liaison on Liberty Station and find out what's going on down there with the church in particular. I think that's still the hot button down there. There's some other issues, obviously, now that with the foundation and the arts district tenants. And I represent some of the tenants down there, and there are a number of issues down there with people who aren't able to pay rent, and some possible, when the courts get back into business, there'll be some issues down there that'll have to be dealt with. So I'd be happy to continue to liaison on that during my interim, as I hope for a vaccine earlier.
May I be added to some of your information to with you on Midway? Because I'm super involved right now with some issues with parking and residential and business. And I'm in the loop with some of those.
Would love to.
Things. I know it's been a nightmare. So I'd like to tag team with David, if that's okay with everyone.
Love to do it.
Information between the two of us.
Yeah, because I think between Midway and Liberty Station, there's probably no more impactful things happening in our area.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure that the proposal is clear. So, the way I would look at it is that we would have David be the liaison for Liberty Station, Margaret be the liaison for Midway, and then they would agree to work together and exchange information on the joint issues that overlap. That sound fair?
Sure.
Great.
All right. So let's just separate them out one at a time. So all those in favor of having appoint David as the Liberty Station chair? Vote.
Liaison.
Liaison. All right. It appears to be unanimous. And all those in favor of having Margaret be the Midway liaison? And again, that appears to be unanimous.
And I'd like to make a motion to be the liaison for the OB Planning Board.
Nice, good.
You don't have to make a motion. You could just nominate yourself.
All right, well, I'm nominating myself.
All right, let's do the OB, liaison to the OB Planning Board. And we have Mandy. Does
Yes.
anybody else want to do that? No? How about everybody in favor of Mandy? Robert? Yes, okay, unanimous. Okay, Mandy, you got that.
Thank you.
All right, what else do we have? We have Parks and Recreation.
Parks.
We know that Don is interested in doing that, and
Nominate Don.
Okay. Mandy?
Can we add a co-chair to that? Because I know there are people like Mandy Sarah also expressed interest at one point. I don't know, I think it'd be good to have two people on that. Because there's so much going on with Park. Just a suggestion.
Well, Mandy has been on there, I don't know, the last year at least or two. Do you want to chair it, Mandy, since Dawn's not here? Would you like to chair that committee as well?
I would definitely be interested in it because I think that there needs to be some,
Meetings?
I'd like to see more meetings in regards to parks. So I'd actually go ahead and nominate myself as the chair of parks.
There you go.
I'll withdraw my nomination of Dawn.
It's fine.
Okay, then,
I agree with David.
And Don can certainly be a member of that committee at any time, whether he's here or not, he can join that committee.
okay, then we, for Parks and Recreation, we have Mandy nominated as the chair. Any other nominations?
I have a question, actually. Can we, I was going to propose that we continue the environmental ad hoc committee as well. Should we combine, or can we combine parks and environmental, or keep them completely separate?
I think Parks is a standing committee, if I'm correct, and environmental is ad hoc. Ad hoc committees are formed for a finite period of time. So I think they should be separate.
You are correct, Corla. According to the bylaws, it is a standing committee opposed to the newly created environmental, which is an ad hoc.
So it does seem like they should be separate. So at this point, do we have any other nominations for the chair of Parks and Recreation? All those in favor of having Mandy as chair of Parks and Recreation? That is unanimous. I'm going to put Don down as a party that's interested. He can withdraw if he doesn't want to, but I'll do that on Don's behalf. Is there anybody else that wants to be on Parks and Recreation with Mandy? I see Margaret.
Eva? I think Eva's got her hand up.
Oh, okay, Eva too. Okay, got that. Thank you. Okay. We do point in a liaison for Point Loma Association.
We do.
And I think that's Robert currently. Is anybody interested in being the liaison with the Point Loma Association?
I nominate Robert Tripp Jackson.
Okay.
You do know their meetings are at 7:30 in the morning.
Oh, I know, and I haven't been very good about following them lately. But I'd be more than happy to continue it on, since we don't have any other directors that are serving on that board in conjunction of.
Perfect.
All right. All those in favor of Robert being our Point Loma Association liaison? Looks like it's unanimous. Good job, Robert.
Yeah.
And I think that covers everything. So I think that we should talk about whether we want to go ahead and approve the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee to continue during the interim period. It seems to me that it's a good idea. It was a committee that was in place and it should probably stay in place during the interim. So
I make a motion to keep the environmental ad hoc committee.
do I have a second for Margaret's motion?
I second that motion.
Okay. Okay, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor?
Hey, just one quick second, just real quick. I just was a question. I was looking at the meetings from the minutes from January, or what was it? It was January, I guess it was. There was a discussion about the environmental committee putting together some kind of a mission statement or some sort of description of what it wanted to do and what its purpose and so forth was. Has any of that? None of that's happened yet. Okay.
No, we haven't had an opportunity to have a meeting to discuss that and vote on that.
That makes sense.
Okay. Good.
Under the circumstances, that seems very understandable.
Yeah, but I would like to we do need to establish a charter, and hopefully in the future, I'd like to make it a permanent subcommittee. I don't think that environmental issues are something that are going to go away from our community, and I think it needs to be, in the future, it needs to be a permanent subcommittee. That's my opinion.
I have to agree, sitting in all these other community meetings, we've got a major issue with storm water situations and all sorts of other environmental concerns in Midway, Liberty Station, and Point Loma. So I definitely think that we need to dabble in that and be part of those conversations with other communities. So I think it should or would be a good idea for us to consider it being a standing committee.
It's certainly worthwhile. We just have to do the proper procedure. So we have to get that in place. And so, but for tonight, I think we can approve the ad hoc committee continuing during the interim period. So I think without further ado, all those in favor of continuing the ad hoc committee? The ad hoc environmental committee passes unanimously. And so with that, we need a chair.
Who seconded that?
As the chair for the ad hoc committee.
Who seconded the motion?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Margaret did, I think.
I know
Margaret was the first. I second it.
Okay.
Are you taking nominations for chair, Fred?
I am looking for nominations for chair.
Okay, I would like to nominate Mandy for chair of the environmental committee.
I'd like to continue to co-chair that with Eva if she's willing to co-chair that ad hoc with me.
Yeah, I would like. I think we work together really well, and I'd like to see that continue.
And I believe that that's the current status right now, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yes.
And I don't see any bylaws that would prevent that. So any further discussion?
No.
All right. Okay, all those in favor of approving Mandy and Eva as the co-chairs of the Environmental Ad Hoc Committee? Unanimous. Unanimous. Congratulations. All right, I think we have nominated all our committees.
Yay.
I have one more.
One more?
Can we revisit the Safe Famosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee? Since we have that's still ongoing and there's lots going on that I'd like to share with the board and the community. And I feel this is perfect, you know, it'd be great to be able to have some sort of ad hoc committee to kind of communicate professionally to the board.
Okay, well, I'm happy to consider it. I think that I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know procedurally if we can create a new committee. So I don't know if the Safe Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee was in place at the time of the sort of the interim interruption.
We never got rid of it.
Who is the current chair of it right now then?
It's me. That's why I'm asking. I've had community members, to be honest, ask me for updates if, you know, we've communicated with the board, and I said we were kind of like at standstill due to the pandemic. Okay. So I just haven't had any real answers to communicate back to the community. So I wanted to address this with the board first. Well, I think it's obviously I think Formosa Canyon is a huge issue that impacts the community, and lots of people are very concerned about it. So an ad hoc committee in that area is fine. I just want to make sure that we're procedurally everybody's happy with the process, whether we can improve it tonight or whether we'd have to put it on the agenda to approve it. Yeah, it's just up to you. As I said, it's just something that I kind of wanted to throw out there and put on our radar, that there is going to be stuff that comes through to the community that's in regards to Formosa, and it worked out really well, you know, having it on this board. So I don't know if anybody else has any feedback or suggestions.
Corla?
I'm not opposed to creating a committee if you guys want to do it. It would be ad hoc and for a finite period. And it could be created tonight. If we create it environmental, it could be created. My feeling is that we don't need that committee. I'm not saying anything against Formosa, but we left our letter, we left our position as a board, and it's on record recorded that there was no action the board was going to take until we saw some RFPs. They put out the RFPs and one came in and then nothing happened. So the board position was voted on, and the stance was that they were going to wait to see something come forward to take a position and or vote on. So in my thinking, if something came forward, the committee would be the one to address that first and then bring it back to the board. But
again, and that's what the committee I'm looking forward to being, is not necessarily taking action, but more of an informative ad hoc as far as we get information from the community and what have you, concerns and issues. It is a big deal in our community right now on the peninsula. It affects many different communities. To not have it be part of just a discussion committee for informative purposes. I mean, this is a new board. Actually, if you look around, we have some people that are no longer on the board. So technically, bringing new information for FAMOSA would be a positive thing with these new board members that have decided to come on, or the new positions, what have you, just to keep it on our radar for discussion at least.
Okay. David, I saw your hand up. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment would be that I think the ad hoc committee we had before was not called the Save the
No, yeah, sorry. I didn't mean to say that. It'd be
Formosa Canyon Committee or something like that. But
yes,
not to put a gloss on it that way. And the other thing I would say is procedurally, and I don't frankly care, but procedurally, if it's an action item, it's not on the agenda. And so technically speaking, I think we really can't establish
So then do we need to remove the environmental ad hoc as well now?
Well, as I'm saying, I let that one go. I just wanted to point out, I was going to sort of mention it then, but I think the difference, Mandy, is the environmental ad hoc committee is one that still exists. I think there was some discussion about whether the Formosa Canyon ad hoc committee continued to exist after we had made the board's position known and published the letter. And so in some respects, I think maybe we're creating a new committee, but that's the reason frankly, I don't want to stand on procedure. If we want to create an ad hoc committee to have a forum for discussing Formosa Canyon issues, I frankly think it's a good idea. We probably ought to have a place where people can go and discuss the issues, because I suspect that they're going to come back up here in the not too distant.
Okay. Lucky, do you have
that's my only concern, David, was for that.
Margaret, I think Lucky was up next. So.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I just have a brief comment, and that's noting how fast planning is moving on trying to push through some projects and things now as fast as they can. I think it would be incumbent on us to have an existing committee in place rather than have a situation where we might lose an opportunity to weigh in on something just because we hadn't formed the committee yet. I thought, even if something that lies dormant for a little bit, when you need it, you're going to need it right away. So I would say I'd like to do it tonight.
Okay. Margaret?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Fred. I just wanted to reiterate, I think, David, I do understand. I think we made the environmental committee for 1 year, just like the FAMOSA, until the following term, which of course we're in the situation, but yeah, the committee is just to gather concerns and communicate and kind of communicate to the board where we're at in the status and all that good stuff. That's all it's for.
All right, Corla?
Yeah, and I think procedurally, David, technically you're correct, but I think the intent on number 4 on our agenda in election of interim board officers was also to reform the committees. It just didn't get typed out there, but that was the intent of, to get the business done for this meeting today.
Okay, and then I have Cameron. I don't know if he's still here, but Cameron seemed to want to make a public comment, so I would allow Cameron to make a public comment if he wanted to.
So,
all my thoughts have already been pretty much reiterated with everything. It's just the problem that we had before when the committee was created was we didn't necessarily define what the end state of the committee would be. So we never, the board never voted to say that the letter was going to be the definitive end, or there was going to wait for a proposal. And I think that's where the confusion's coming from. And you got to remember, we did this way back almost a year ago now. And so I had to go pull some notes, and from my notes, we never gave it a definitive end time. And I think that's where all the confusion's coming from. And so it's just something we'll have to be careful of moving forward. I think there's an active proposal out there. We're negotiating with a person right now, a contractor. And there's been a lot of ins and outs, and just as Lucky said, I think when something comes down the pipe, it's going to come down quick, and the board's going to need to react quickly, or at least have that available to react quickly to a proposal, because the way things are going right now, it looks like they're going to try to shove something through regardless. So,
all right, David?
Cameron, let me just ask you a question, because you just said something that I wasn't aware of, and maybe Margaret, you can, or Cameron, you can expand on it. But when you say a contractor, you mean a developer, somebody who actually comes in with a plan to develop the property that the planning commission or the housing commission is in discussions or negotiations with?
Yes, they're in negotiations right now, closed off to the public. They did get, from my research, they gave a $2 million enticement to get a proposal by a developer, and you're correct, not a contractor. I'm sorry, David.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we definitely need to be clear. So yes, a developer did put forth a proposal. They've been in negotiations since March, and they've been pretty tight-lipped with us on anything since then. It also happened around the COVID time. And so the only thing I've been able to verify is they do have a proposal. They had some sort of $2 million enticement fee associated with that proposal, and that they've been in negotiations, and negotiations are at least 6 months long, if not longer, and that they legally cannot tell the community or the public anything that's going on with those negotiations.
Okay, I'm comfortable that the idea of reforming the Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee is consistent with the agenda and item number 4 and sort of the spirit of what we want to do. So
sure.
Can we get a motion and a second on that?
I'll make a motion to keep the Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee.
Do we have a second? Margaret?
I second. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of reforming the Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It appears to be unanimous. All right. There we go. All right. So now, who wants to be the chair of the Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee? Margaret?
I had a co-chair, so if everyone agrees to Cameron being my co-chair, that would be great.
I don't think so. I think you have to be a board member to.
Yeah.
He was my co-chair last.
I don't know how you guys did before, but he can be a member, but you have to chair.
I think that's probably
Gladly chair.
And he can do all the work.
He'll do all the work.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know,
it's his baby.
Okay, so anybody else besides Margaret want to be the chair of the Formosa Canyon Ad Hoc Committee? Okay, all those in favor of having Margaret as the chair?
Nobody wants it.
That appears to have unanimously passed also. Very good. All right, Margaret, congratulations. And are there any board members that want to work on that ad hoc committee with Margaret? I got Robert Tripp Jackson, David Dick.
Thank you.
All right, and then you can work, Cameron, you can get on as a community member, I would imagine, no problem.
Fred, quick question.
Sure.
Did we ask if anyone wanted to join environmental committee? Any board members want to join?
I might have skipped over that. So why don't, that's a great question. So we have Mandy and Eva as co-chairs. Who else would like to participate on the environmental ad hoc committee? I got Margaret. Anybody else besides Margaret?
On Sarah.
Oh gosh, just the secretary thing is a lot of work too. So I'll join when I can.
All right. Well, you got Margaret for sure, and Sarah as she's available.
Are coming that week too.
Cameron.
All right. Any other committees, ad hoc committees, liaisons that we need to appoint?
Did we do governance?
That was an ad hoc committee, and I don't know. I don't know if Corla was the chair of that. I don't know if that's something that should continue during the interim
He
period.
was the current chair, but I'm just saying if anything comes through the pipelines from here until elections, I mean, you kind of need.
I don't think Corla seems to be not interested. I would think that if there's some special need that comes up at that point, then we can always form it. But I don't know if we necessarily need to have a standing committee. David, if you have a comment.
I don't think we need a committee. It isn't a standing committee. I don't think we need an ad hoc committee. Until something comes up, we can form one for that purpose. The one thing, and this is something I've been thinking about, in connection with the election. If this situation continues, being able to have an in-person election where people actually come to a polls, touch a pen, touch paper, interact with human beings in real time, that's going to be hard to do, I think, for any time in the near future. I think it would be an interesting thing to look at as to whether there's any way we can actually do a virtual election, whether it's online or it's mail or it's some other form of election. Then I think maybe the governance committee, maybe we'd need to have some sort of ad hoc committee to study that. I think we might want to do that because I think it could be a long time before we have an election. So that's my only thought about a governance committee. So my suggestion would be, let's hold on it. That's the one thing I think we probably may need to do. And so let's hold on it until we do.
Yeah.
Comfortable with that?
That's good. That's very good.
So,
Lucky?
I have a question when you mentioned long time until we have an election. So what is really this, when we say this phrase, some of us are temporarily interim filling a seat? Could that be 2 years before you have a face-to-face election?
I think, Lucky, that the way I would look at it, and I mean, I think we should have a discussion. Everybody should think about it. But I mean, I think that the interim is until March of next year. That's in my mind, because that's when the next election is scheduled. And it seems like something will be resolved by then. If something's not resolved by then, I mean, my proposal would be that we'd sort of reevaluate what we want to do, and we could have an agenda item to talk about it. But I think that, for now, I would sort of say that interim is, whenever we have an election, if it's before March or March the latest. But I'm open to ideas. And Jim, did you have an idea?
Yeah, just very briefly. The council adopted urgency measures related to Council Policy 600-24 that presumably will lift at some point. And when they lift, everything snaps back to, our bylaws snap back into full effect and all those things. So what my presumption is that once the urgency associated with the pandemic is lifted, that the council would take that action, and that would be a signal to us that we need to do it. Now, if we can get and I agree with David, I think exploring the possibilities of conducting an election and making a normal transition, that's something that we should look for an opportunity to do at the earliest convenience. I just don't know how that looks and how it goes, and maybe we need to continue to have conversations about that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. We'll try to get through the rest of the agenda here. So the next item is sort of the action item discussion, is the determination of options to use Zoom for planning board meetings. Corla, that's your item.
Okay. Zoom to me is a lot easier to use than WebEx. I've done some WebEx meetings and I think it's a bit cumbersome. I think we should continue using Zoom this way. I did some research and studying, and I was hoping to be able to we have a licensed account that I've been paying for through Zoom, and that gives us unlimited time and a lot of other nice features. And it's just nice to have. However, I can't add another host to that unless someone else has a licensed account. Does anybody on the board have a licensed Zoom account? Okay, so we have options on Zoom. It's costing right now about $12 a month, which is pretty good because it's usually $15. I don't know if it's got a special, but they just charged again. It was another $12. It's supposed to be $15 a month or $149 a year, but if we can get away with $12 a month, that's good. I need to have approval to pay for that. I didn't mind paying for the first one, but I don't want to pay for it then we need to figure out how our committees are going to meet. Now, Zoom has there's a free Zoom, but it's a 40-minute limit. And there's ways around that. You can set up 2 meetings concurrently, and then when your 40 minutes runs out, you go to your next 40. Or I don't mind hosting meetings. There's an awful lot of committees. I'm not really sure I want to host all of those committees, but I'm willing to host as much as I can to allow the committees to meet on the licensed account. Or y'all can figure out how to use the free Zoom. So that's what I know, and that's what's open for discussion.
Any comments? I mean, I think the Zoom works very well, so I like it. It seems like everybody can operate it.
Yeah.
So do we want to make a motion to reimburse those,
Well, I believe that 40-minute time limit you got, that almost starts when the first person logs on, or so you got to be very careful who's ever running it doesn't let the meeting start early, because that all comes off of that 40-minute end.
Exactly. And that would be up to the committee chairs to deal with that if they wanted to have that. Like, it just depends, like what comes up. I sit on project review, so obviously I'll host that. And, like Liberty Station, like we're really not going to need much on that. That could be done in a 40-minute Zoom, most of them. So, the committee chairs can either get with me and we can figure something out, or whatever, whatever.
Cameron's got his hand up for something there.
Well, I'm going to go for, is there any other board comment first?
How much is the bill?
It's $12 a month.
I can pay for the rest of the month, a year, and make
Well, that's up to you, because the next item is going to be reimbursement on that. But we have right now, and this, I'm getting out of order, but this all relates to this. Our balance is $657.81, and the only reason we have that much money in our account is because we didn't have an election. We didn't have to spend it, so we do have money to fund that, and then that money is going to go away pretty quickly when we have an election. I think maybe at this point, unless there's further discussion, I'd like to make a motion that we fund Zoom for the year, or do you want to pay for it, Margaret? I mean,
I will second it.
Yeah.
And then and then I'll work with you to write it off. Is that fair?
Whatever if you wanted to make a donation or something, you can do that.
Yeah, I don't mind making the donation to pay for the remainder of the year. Just so I'll use it. I have my own Zoom account, so I'll be good with hosting my committee meetings. But yeah, it'd be nice to have a PCPB one where Fred, if he needs to, use it for whatever the chair needs, just.
So you have a licensed Zoom account that you pay for?
I do, my own, yeah.
And then you can co-host, you can host and co-host any meeting. I can add you to the PCPB account. So anybody that has a paid Zoom account, I can set them up to be a host of a meeting.
You're doing a great job at it, though.
Yeah, I just don't want to do all the committee.
Yeah, no, I get it. I understand. I understand.
All right, so is the motion to reimburse Corla for the Zoom costs for the remainder of the year?
I think it was to go ahead and use the funds in the account to pay for the rest of the year.
Okay.
Corla?
Yes, that's how I would state it. And that would be, I would say, as we were discussing earlier with interim officers, interim board positions and all that, until like through March when we normally have our elections. And then we reevaluate what's happening at that point. That's how I would phrase that motion.
Okay. Any other board comment?
Nope, I second that motion.
Okay, by Corla and second by Margaret. I have public comment. It looks like Cameron's had his hand up for a while. You have public comment, Cameron?
Just real quick, I think you guys are kind of going down the road. I was just going to say, why don't you just get a generic PCPB account and then just have the board pay for the annual fee, and then whatever chair needs it can just work with either the chair or the first vice chair, whoever controls it, get the login information and host whatever meeting they're doing. And then that way it'd be just a limited number of people who have access to it. But I think it's just generic.
Well, we can work on that. I tried that. Because I set it up in the register at PCPB. That's linked to my credit card, and there was no other way to do that. There might be a way to change that, but I don't know how to do that yet. I'm not sure. I just this month discovered lot of new things. So yeah, so it's a process.
I agree. I think we've all learned a few new things this year, last few months.
All right, well, I think the Zoom meetings have been very helpful, so it seems appropriate. So let's take a vote. All those in favor of approving using PCPB funds to fund the Zoom meetings? It appears to be unanimous. Unanimous. Okay.
And I'd like to make a little statement to Josh. Hello, Josh. If he would take back to council that all the planning boards are having to use their little $500 stipend for these type of things now, and maybe it might be nice if we could get some extra funding for our meetings.
Yeah, I actually was making a note to follow up. We have the Microsoft Teams that we use at the city. I don't know why they don't offer that to you all to use. I know Zoom is a little bit more user friendly, but I'm happy to bring that back. I think that's a good point. You all shouldn't have to be using your funds for this.
Thank you.
Okay, informational item number 1, the press release by Council Member Jen Campbell on regulating short-term rentals, and that's Corla.
Well, I'm going to defer to Josh. I have to say, I'll start out by saying there's a lot of stuff going on. And I think, unfortunately, I think the city and the state are trying to shove a lot of things through during this pandemic with some type of urgency. And I don't feel like we have a chance for meaningful input. But Mandy, Margaret, and I have all been to a lot of meetings lately. And Josh has been at the majority of those. And I think he's got a little presentation about Dr. Campbell's STVR press release and some information for us.
All right, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I don't have a formal presentation, but thanks for the opportunity to weigh in and just clarify and also explain a little bit more about the press release and some of the conversations. I do know that there is a sense of urgency, but I do want to just back up a little bit and let folks know a little bit more about the timeline as it relates to what we expect to see in terms of this process. We did have a conversation with the Expedia Group as well as a local union here in the city, Unite Here. We anticipate, though, that this proposal is at the very early stages as we begin to start this conversation. We anticipate this proposal will need to have review by the Planning Commission, by a City Council committee, probably the Land Use and Housing Committee. It will then need to go to full council for approval, and then we'll also need to probably go to the Coastal Commission after that. So while I understand that there is some general urgency and some desire to get involved and make sure that we don't get away from this, I do want to let folks know that this is the very beginning of the process, and this is a proposal and a starting place. So I just want to ground us in that level of comfort that this conversation is just beginning, and I appreciate that you all are willing to be involved. The council member asked me to convey that she's happy to come to a meeting in the future to discuss if that's needed. But I'm happy to talk broadly about the proposals and the regulations if that's of interest to the group.
Do we have any questions? Brad?
And in reading I think it was the email in response to some of the criticisms that Dr. Campbell had, at the bottom of the letter, I thought it should have been qualified at the beginning, but now there was some perception that the city feels as though it is somewhat exposed because they haven't enforced the code, and that's why we're trying to get some rules in place instead of just saying a flat no, these are not allowed. I mean, I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do. The council member feels that this is a compromise to keep us out of the courtroom and out of the ballot box. And so we feel that this is a starting place to have all the key players in one room to really allow us a conversation on what we feel is an appropriate beginning to the conversation. I think a lot of folks want to compare what we have now to what we're experiencing to what the proposal is. We currently only have the regulation that if you're renting under 30 days, you have to have a TOT certificate, a TOT business tax certificate, similarly. And the enforcement's few and far between because we just don't have the staff to keep up with it, and that's why PD is running around with some of the lower level questions or concerns that come up. But I would say that this is the beginning point of the compromise to discuss what we can do to actually add full regulations with permitting guidelines and then some enforcement teeth. I hope that answers your question, Brad.
All right, and
To
then,
some degree, I think it's just the way that it was, my understanding was that the city attorney thought that if they tried to enforce the code as written, that, these are single family communities and you basically have a hotel there, that they feel as though then you're going to get Airbnb and VRBO funding. People's objection to that is that why we're trying to go this route, because we're just going to open the city up to potential lawsuit if we try to make people enforce the specific code as written?
I think that's where we're at right now, and that's why I think we're trying to find a compromise to stay out of the courtroom and out of the ballot box.
All right.
on the order of hands, I thought I saw Eva and then I saw Lucky. So Eva, do you have a question?
Not as much a question as a comment. Josh, you mentioned that this was being put forth, bringing some of the major stakeholders to the table. And I'd like to just point out that the big stakeholder is being left off the table, and that's the community. That is us living in the beach communities. And I feel like we've not been, or the community has not been given a chance to participate in the process or voice our concerns. This just really smacks of a sort of a backroom deal that is being struck between Dr. Campbell's office and VRBO, or the Airbnb corporations.
Yeah, I agree with you, Eva. I believe that she's left the community out of the conversation. And in my perception, I just felt like she was telling us what she was doing. It wasn't, how can we change or change this? It was more like we've allowed this to happen. We've disobeyed the law of the land, and now we're going to give these people a new law to help them be legit. And I just don't see that this has anything to do for the community, but it has everything to do for special interests. And again, we're being sold out to be some sort of tourist attraction or Disneyland for adults, and you're selling out our community. And I think Dr. Campbell needs to respect the inputs and really respect the community that and fulfill the promises that she made when she ran. She made some promises to our community, and unfortunately, it's not looking like she's being honest. And that's very concerning as a community member. And then of that, here we are, elected members. We're volunteers on this board, and the fact that it was an afterthought, it was just rushed in. It wasn't even brought to the board or even presented for inputs. The lack of communication from District 2 is alarming. And so I would like to ask that I be put on that distribution list, please, so that we can get more communication from Dr. Campbell going forward. But I want to let you know that our community is not very happy. Word on the street is she's not in the good graces of the community. That's all I have to say.
Josh, did you want to respond to those comments?
Sure. Thank you for the comments. And Mandy, you're welcome to sign up for our newsletter on the Dr. Campbell's website. I'm happy to also forward you the newsletter that comes out. There is plenty of opportunity for communication as well. I've attended most of the meetings, and while I won't take those comments personally, I understand everyone has their own opinions. I'm happy to take those back as well. I think that this is a conversation that's been going on long before we took office, and I want to say that we were able to put together some conversation and talking points about what we see as a solution to the problem. This has been going on for well over 5 years. And so I won't also pretend to not know what you all feel about STVRs since I started working in Point Loma a year and a half ago. So while I appreciate the point of wanting to have the community involved, I think that's why we're here. And you've elected us to put together a proposal to work on your behalf, and we're here, and I'm here for your input. And so while I respect that, I think now's the time for that to begin. So
Okay.
I think that's my response.
All right, Lucky, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. First off, are we talking about, I don't know if you can see it, this memo from her, are we talking about the thing that has the union information on the front of it?
That's a good question, Lucky. I think that the first response that I'm sorry.
That looks more like a letter if you can see it at all. The second document I was wondering about, there's one here that talks about, it's similar but different. So which one is the group talking about? First one or second one?
There's both. One, could you hold them up a little higher?
Yeah,
Lucky?
sure. I'll see if I can actually get it. There's
Okay, that one, it was the response to the community's reaction to that press release that you have in your hand right now.
this press release. Okay.
Yeah, that's number one. That's
Okay,
the press release. The other one is the email.
Okay, well, I like that. I will address number one then first. First off, it's interesting here how tightly the council person has started to align herself with the union element. I find that very, very not encouraging. Also on the second page, if I can be allowed to read, they talk about capping whole home STRs at 0.7% of the city housing stock. And then they say based on Sandag. And I won't get into you about figures based on Sandag because that's about as, yeah, never mind. Sandag couldn't, yeah. But anyway, then it goes on to annual demographic and socioeconomic housing estimate, which would equate to 3,750 permits today. But if you go down to an item, 4 items down, starting with adopting the Mission Beach's Town Council recommendation to permit up to 30% of the housing units in the community to be used as a whole.
In that community,
which is 1,086. Then you read, which will be in addition to the citywide cap. So if you're saying the citywide cap is 3,750 up here, then you're adding another 1,086 to the, if I've read this correctly, you're adding 1,086 to that number. Josh, am I right about this so far?
Yeah, seems like it.
Anyway, so and then you're up here going up to, you're saying we're reducing whole form STRs by 70%. Well, if you use the 3,750 number, you get 1%, 70%. But if you use the 4,836 number, you don't get 70% the way you're touting it. And that's just my first reading of that. And I'm not seeing here how it definitely talks about how permit fees will be tied into monies for enforcement. It has some vague reference to that, but I don't see where, you know, you're going to have a police squad that does this paid for out of fees. And then whatever happened to Airbnb in this thing? Why weren't they able to bring them into it? You talk about all the people at the table. You left one of the biggest ones outside the door.
They're not in.
They're not as part. What's that? I'm sorry. I'll be done here in just a second. So I really found it interesting here how many times it's also referred to how many union jobs she's going to send. I really got a feeling that the good doctor may be turning into a union sellout here, and I'm pretty disappointed in her. I voted for her. I don't think I'd do it again. Thank you. I'm done.
Eva, you have a question or a comment?
A comment, if you can bear with me. The solution that is now being offered by Dr. Campbell and her office is completely contrary to the platform she ran on, and the reason many of us voted for her. This is a complete, 180 to what we were led to believe she would do for our community. Additionally, she ran on sort of a platform of being a healthcare professional and understanding the needs of a community. We're now finding ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic, a true healthcare crisis that affects so many in our community. And as a fellow healthcare professional, I can tell you this has made a huge impact on so many individuals and so many families that are finding themselves unemployed, underemployed, uninsured, having a hard time paying their rent, keeping their mortgages current. Yet we're taking away from the housing stock and continuing to increase housing prices by making it lucrative to rent to basically running hotels rather than opening up housing to our community. And with that, hopefully bringing down rents and prices.
Corla?
A quick comment. I attended the Teams meeting with Dr. Jen. Mandy and I were both there. And then I was at the OB ad hoc short-term vacation rental committee meeting one of these recent days, whatever day it was. This might be better served in committee. But what I will say, I'd like to say to the board is that a regulation is better than nothing, but all the community members that I've heard from are all still, they all still want it banned. They want the law enforced that city attorneys said they were illegal back in 2007. And everybody's worried about a lawsuit, and a community member has informed me that there could be case precedent where a lawsuit might not even be brought forth, considering, when new administration takes over and start enforcing laws on the books, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a lawyer. It's not something I really understand. You guys probably do better. But the majority of the community wants a ban, and maybe this better served in committee.
Okay, so I mean, if I was to summarize, I think, Josh, the community is very concerned about this issue, and there's concern that Jen Campbell's should communicate more with the community and with the planning board. So I'd encourage you to take steps in that direction, and we'd welcome the opportunity to work with you so that we get our input.
Sure. Thank you all.
Okay. All right. Next up, we got the Community Planners Committee input on the complete communities proposal. So Corla, you're going to head that one up too?
I'm going to say the same thing I did before. Josh, you're up.
Okay, great. I think this will get popular too.
I'm happy to defer to the planning department, but I'll tell you, I'm the Midway guy. I don't know about the others, but the Complete Communities Plan, as you all know, has been certainly a topic of conversation, something that the council members been interested on. I'm again happy to ensure that the planning department can come give you a full presentation, but I can tell you what we know, and that is an opportunity for us to really re-examine. An opportunity to really examine how we look at access to parks, also access to DIF spending, access to a lot of other opportunities that exist within the Complete Communities Plan. Some of it is in response to state law. I'll tell you that we are currently managing several concerns that the city has put forward on Complete Communities. We anticipate that it will come back to committee or in some format have an opportunity for the public to weigh in again before it goes to full council. But this is, I think it's folks feel that it's a lot too quickly, and I think that is something that we're going to continue to look at. I'm happy to take specific questions that folks have. The parks element of the Complete Communities umbrella was just presented to the Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee yesterday. So these are specific elements, from housing to parks to mobility to DIF spending. And the mayor's prerogative is to ensure that there is equal access to reshape our city and how we look at those types of solutions. So this is not a council initiative. This is not a Dr. Campbell initiative. This is me speaking with the information that I know. This is a staff initiative that has been presented to us. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, I'm going to have questions. I will note, Josh, that I did get some emails from community members who express concerns about it and how that they're concerned that this changes the contours of the communities, and so I think it's an important issue. And I personally would be interested in having a presentation by the planning department. And so I'd be interested, as people make comments, if the board would be interested in seeing, I think it would be a good idea. So with that, I think Corliss' hand went up first.
Okay, so now I missed the June CPC meeting, but I was at their special meeting, and also I was at the Midway meeting yesterday. The comment period for this complete communities ended in June 15th, and we weren't even really reformed then. So again, I'm unhappy that they're trying to push this through and nobody seems to know about it. I tried to join that Parks and Recs meeting yesterday and couldn't get through, kept getting an error message, and I believe CPC was going to call in, but I haven't heard back from the CPC people yet. I
can send you a link to the recording, just so folks have it. Yep.
Was not the presentation tonight the same time as our meeting on that complete communities? Is that's not what's going on now?
That was just a community feedback session for like a Q&A session. It was not any sort of like motion or change. It was just an opportunity for the community to weigh in.
Josh, can you send that to me too? Because I was on Park and Rec and I haven't got anything.
Yeah, I'm actually going to send Fred a few follow-up items, both related to SDRs and this item, so he can send it out to the entire board.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So that Parks Master Plan is a big deal. It's too much. I've had too much going on. I haven't been able to read it, but there's one element that I object to on this, and we can talk more thoroughly if we have a further presentation, but there's one part of it, and OB and Midway have all really weighed in heavily on this as well, but there's a part in there that says that they can put their affordable housing within a mile of the development. And that could, number one, put them into two different planning districts, as well as, does anybody remember the downtown project where they were going to have the market rate housing in one building and the affordable in the other building? It seems discriminatory to me. Now, that's my comment. But what I have to say is that CPC, as well as the Ocean Beach Planning Board, La Jolla, OB, everybody's been working on this except us because we're just starting to get going. They've done a lot of legwork and research, and they've run the numbers and determined that there's serious limitations with this draft plan. CPC issued another press release, and they're requesting the city not docket this plan until all planning groups can have the opportunity to weigh in. They also request everyone send their comments and or objections to all city council members, especially Chair Georgette Gomez. And I just think we need time to weigh in. DK from the Midway group yesterday, his comment about CPC was that they didn't like any of it. And I don't think that's true, but I think everybody just wants a chance to weigh in, and we don't want this docketed. There's meeting after meeting after meeting that's happening about things, and we just don't have the opportunity to weigh in. Thank you, I'm done with that.
Do we have other board comments? I'm gonna go to the public comment. Cameron, you're up.
Thanks, Fred. So I'd encourage everyone on the board to actually go onto the city's website on Complete Communities. They actually have quite a thorough plan up already, and there's a lot of information. So really, Josh, what I'm concerned with is the whole emphasis of Complete Communities is based off State Bill 237, which says that they want to reduce the vehicles miles traveled by the different areas. And so their goal is to get 85% of baseline. I couldn't find anything on what determined the baseline, but basically they broke the city into 4 different zones, VMTs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Zones 1, 2, 3 were already in compliance and had less than 85% of baseline, and were already compliant. Point Loma, Ocean Beach, and most of the coastal communities fell in that area already. And what concerned me was in those communities that were already compliant, instead of rewarding these communities, they want to increase the RAF up to 4 and even higher if they can, and break through the 30-foot rule. Use it as an excuse to break through the 30-foot rule to increase densification in these coastal communities, even though they're already in compliance. And the other disturbing thing I found, I realized after reading the city's plan, was that, and the whole point of the SB State Bill 247 was to reduce miles traveled. in the VMT areas 4. And that's where you exceed the current baseline. And nowhere has the city done anything. Matter of fact, the city on their website says, we're not going to do anything in this area that's already the whole impetus of this. We're not doing anything there. We're just going to densify our coastal communities to put more people in our coastal communities so that our numbers come down overall and we achieve that 85% baseline on the vehicles miles traveled. And I know this had come up before, and I'm really concerned that areas that do need to reduce their vehicles miles traveled aren't even being targeted. Instead, the city's taking the easy way out and just densifying the coastline. And with the wrap of 4, that would easily exceed the 30-foot rule and go around the will of the people. Thank you for hearing me out. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. So, yeah, if Josh, if you can forward me some information both on short-term rentals and on complete communities, I will definitely distribute those to the board. And I guess what I would encourage, now that we've got the board back up and running, we can start to get involved. I mean, these touch on a lot of different committees. So the people that have volunteered to be chairs, I mean, I think it affects long-range planning, it affects Midway, liaison, it affects environmental, it affects traffic. And so, you know, as we get this information and we get the committees going, I would encourage people to start thinking about how this impacts it, and so we can discuss it more. Brad, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm just wondering regarding the state legislation and some of these press releases that were included in this. That's one of the reasons that Miller and Ms. Volk were invited. I don't know if they have anything to add to that would help us at least initially start to understand these issues.
All right, well, I'll ask either Miller or Ms. Falk if they would like to make a comment.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk about the housing bills if we're switching over from that or to that from complete communities, definitely.
Basically, are you saying, Miller, that you don't have any input on this communities? That's just a city matter. You're now a state guy?
Didn't say that. I said I have a planned remarks on the housing bills, but if you have specific questions for our office, I don't do housing for our office. So the complete communities issue is being watched by our housing staffer, but I'd be happy to try to answer anything or bring back questions you guys have and email them to our new chair. Congrats, Fred, by the way, and everyone else on their positions.
Well,
yeah, I would add.
If you could ask your housing people if they have input, I think that would be helpful to the board, and I'd be happy to receive it and distribute it.
Sure.
And Fred, is that in regards to the complete communities, or is that in regard to the state housing legislation?
Well, I'll take them both, but I think we're really focusing right now on the complete communities.
Okay.
The housing legislation will be next in a minute here.
Brad, I have a question.
Go ahead, David.
It's sort of for Cameron and Mandy. Cameron, I'm not familiar with what you were talking about, and Mandy, I hadn't seen what you held up. Map.
It was a map. I apologize. I was just.
No, it would be helpful.
It was the mobile zones. Is basically this map is the first map that shows the FAR tiers that they've designated for the city. As you can see on the coastal, it's 4%. And then what Cameron's talking about on this map, if you look in the blue area, that's the areas that they're wanting, those are tiers 2, 3, and 4, and those are the areas that they're wanting to densify. But as you look at the map, you can see a massive part of yellow, especially if you look closer on the peninsula. Look up there, that's not being required to change our FAR or densify. But that same area is contributing to the VMT substantially. And so the concern is that this was created to help mitigate vehicle miles traveled. Why are they not looking to densify those areas in yellow as well, especially when tiers 2, 3, and 4, the blue areas have already met their 85%. They've met their goals for the VMT. And then the second issue that I have, I will bring this up regarding mobility. The issue I have is, how do they calculate vehicles mile traveled? Because if you live on the coast or you've been in Southern California, you can travel 1 mile and it can take you several minutes or possibly hours, depending what day of the week, you know? And so I'd like to understand and get clarification on how they calculate the vehicles mile traveled. I believe that it might need to look into the emissions that are emitted. That would be a better indicator of what's being the impact on the communities, rather than the vehicles mile traveled.
Where do you find that information that you have? I haven't seen that.
That would be from the Complete Communities link. Josh, can you please provide that to the group?
I can email it to everyone. It's on the city's website. They got it all over the place. And Mandy, it's BMT mobile building 1, 2, and 3. 4 is out of compliance, and that's kind of what my whole problem with this whole thing is the areas that are not in compliance already for vehicle miles traveled, the city's not doing anything about. And the reason why this concerns the state level is this is the city's response to State Bill 237. And so what they're trying to do is bring down the total miles of travel. And the thing is, the State Bill 237 said that the level of service no longer requires, like how easy it is to drive to traffic, it's how many miles. They don't care if it takes you a half hour to drive 1 mile. They care that you only drive 1 mile. And so I think they're kind of looking at it backwards as far as emissions go. But I digress, and and the point being is that the city is just trying to flood the coastal zones with more densification to bring down the city's overall vehicle miles traveled below the 85% baseline. And then that way they don't have to do anything in these mobility zones 4. And in the reality situation is the state is trying to get us to address things like public transportation in mobility zones. So I think we're just taking the easy way out on that. And then, but anyways, I hope that answers your question, David.
Yeah, I just, maybe Fred, if you could, or with the assistance of whoever it was, Josh or Cameron, whoever, maybe not Josh, but maybe one of whoever has the ability to circulate those links to the information, because I'm not familiar with any of that. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, Josh did add the link to the chat box. So if you go there, you can click on that link to get more information as well.
Great, perfect, thanks.
All right, and if you have if Cameron or other people have things that they think are important, if you send it to me, I'll take a look at them, and if it appears to be a good informational item, give me a little description so I know what it was, and I'm happy to distribute it to the board so that everybody can get it.
Great, thanks, Cameron, for doing that.
All right. I think that was a good discussion. I'd like to move on so we stay on somewhat schedule. And so we have our next informational item, which also seems to be a hotbed item, which is a sports arena redevelopment proposal concept. So Margaret, you're up.
We also, Fred, sorry, in number 2, the state legislation press release was also in that Complete Communities. There were 2 press releases by CPC, and so Miller and Michaela are here about the state bill.
All right. Well, thank you, Corla. Okay, so let's finish that up, because I know that's what they wanted to talk about. So let's go ahead and do the press release.
That's their arena. I'll let them speak. I have some comments when they're done, but let's hear. Miller has a nice presentation.
I'll be quick too, and hopefully entertaining. So I'll just do a quick overview of some of the bills, and then once I'm done, I'll send a link that'll have a brief summary of the bills, at least the Senate bills, and fact sheets, bill language, and a link to follow them in the process. Overall, these bills are meant to streamline the process for property owners to help increase affordable housing and respond to our housing shortage so our kids and grandkids can stay in San Diego. But there's a lot here, and as I said, I'm not exactly an expert, but I will answer what I can and get answered what I can't. The Senate, we have passed the House of Origin deadline, so all Senate bills are in the Assembly and vice versa. The scheduling of our session has changed a lot because of COVID, and we've lost a lot of time. And the goal this legislative session was to have some really look at affordable housing seriously and how we can increase it throughout the state. And that, as Corla mentioned, was, one could say, expedited, more because just we lost a good chunk of time because of COVID. But as I said, feel free to ask questions or send comments. I'm happy to get anything answered. So I'll just go over very briefly each bill. I don't know how well versed everyone is at the bills out there, but I'll mention each briefly. So Senate Bill 899 allows affordable housing on land owned by religious institutions and independent nonprofit colleges. Senate Bill 902 allows local governments to pass a zoning ordinance for up to 10 units, it used to be 6, without triggering CEQA, and in areas that are transit rich, jobs rich, and urban fill. SB 995 extends what was AB 900 for what are called environmental leadership development projects for housing. It lowers the dollar threshold for the investment value from 100 million to 15 million and includes 15% affordable housing. Senate Bill 1085 enhances the density bonus law by increasing the number of incentives provided to developers in exchange for providing more affordable units. Senate Bill 1120 by Senator Atkins adds to the ADU law, creating lot splits and additional ADUs, although there is language in the bill that says it cannot, buildings created by this bill could not be short-term vacation rentals. The minimum stay would be 30 days for tenants in those additions. And it would have to meet local zoning. The city council would still be in charge of approving or denying. And the last two I want to mention, Senate Bill 1385 allows residential development on land zoned for commercial, office, and retail by making housing an eligible use for those sites. And then Senate Bill 1410, which is a budget trailer bill connected to budget. This is an optional agreement between the state, landlord, and tenants to avoid eviction and foreclosures during the COVID-19 pandemic. And this would be in the form of tax credits given in the amount of the missed rent from the state to the landlord, and tenants would pay rent back to the state over 10 years, interest-free starting 2024, and it could be forgiven or reduced based on their median income. So that's just a quick overview. I'll send more information. The Senate and the Assembly will not be reconvening until July 27th. So you folks have some time to talk and think about it as a group or however you want to do it. So just feel free to reach out to us with any comments.
And I'll touch on that in terms of the timeline. So the Assembly today did announce their committee meetings, and so I was able to see where these bills fall. Actually, a lot of the bills fall within the local government committee. SB 1085 is the only one that will be going to the Housing Committee. And the Housing Committee is where Assemblymember Gloria does sit and can vote. SB 1085 will be, on Assemblymember Gloria's, he'll have the time to make a position on July 28th. Other than that, in terms of the Senate bills going to the Assembly, it could be any time before August 11th that Assemblymember Gloria would have to vote on those bills. So that's kind of the timeline. August 31st is the date that by law, all legislation would need to be passed by the legislature and go to the governor.
Okay, yeah, so if you send information, obviously it's something that we may want to look at the August meeting. Corla, did you have a comment?
I do. I have one specific comment from Miller about specifically about SB 902. I understand there's language to the effect that a simple majority vote by local governments, including city councils, could overturn voter initiatives. And this would certainly threaten our 30-foot height limit here. Is that language in there? And do you think it will be removed at some point, or is that going to stay?
So I can double check on it and look into it specifically. I don't see any intent for the state to override a city vote. But let me make sure.
Yeah, but if the language does say that, that's certainly concerning for our neighborhood. And then I urge the board to read the 2 press releases. Brad included them in the agenda, and I think they're on our website. Read the CPC press releases because they've broken all this down, and they have a lot of information in there from community planning perspective from the whole committee. So read those for background information.
Jim, do you have a comment?
Yeah, very briefly, on the community planners committee press release on these state laws. First off, you have to really enjoy this stuff to dig into it and keep track of all these bills as they move forward and they're amended in committees and get sent around and all of this kind of stuff. And you can find a lot of threats in there, and a lot of those threats are absolutely real. What I think CPC has very nicely done for us is that there's 3 bullet points at the bottom of their press release on the state zoning mandates. And basically what their concerns is imposition of state mandates that take away local control of zoning and land use, change in land use rules to allow ministerial decisions to bypass local community review, and exceptions to the California Environmental Quality Act. Those 3 points that you just put in front of your camera. And I guess what I would say is as a general frame of reference, those are the kind of comments that either would or would not be made by the city of San Diego on our behalf, it would seem to me. So those comments come in reaction to laws that are coming down where I think state legislature over a period of time came to the point was, hey, we need for you guys to build more housing. We need for you guys to build more housing. We need for you guys to build more housing, and housing elements and all those kinds of things get, and then the housing just didn't get built. So now they're telling us instead of asking us or attempting to. So I guess my question, what that boils down to a question is at the local level is, do we as a city have a general policy in reacting to these bills in Sacramento through our council and through our legislative analysis divisions at the city that lines up with those 3 points or not? And to me, that would be a key point, because we can bang our head reacting to the state or reacting to all these bills and everything. And the question is, philosophically, does the city of San Diego agree with those 3 points or not? And that would sort out a lot of the legislation and a lot of what our reaction to it should be.
I don't know, is Josh still here? Does the city have a view on that?
The city does hire lobbyists to work with the state in Sacramento. We also have the mayor has a government affairs team. I don't specifically know if this is an item that's been addressed. Council itself doesn't necessarily get involved in that type of legislation, but we certainly obviously advocate and make sure that could or shouldn't get included. I'm happy to ask. I suspect it's on somebody's radar, but I just don't know to what extent.
Yeah, I don't know philosophically if the city is saying, hey, get out of our kitchen state, or if in some respects maybe the city is welcoming it because they want those additional units and the ability to streamline and do that. And that would be a useful thing for planning groups to know. Is the city in line with what the state is attempting to do, or is the city not in line? And who knows, maybe some of that gets resolved out during the mayor's election.
David?
Miller, which of those various bills is the one you referred to that allows for commercial land to be used for residential purposes?
The commercial land one was Senate Bill 1385.
1385, okay. And does that basically override local zoning so that if a piece of land is zoned commercial, it can be used for residential purposes, notwithstanding what the zoning is? Was that a yes? I'm
So
sorry.
I would have to check on that.
Okay. Don't worry about it. I'll look at it myself. And which one of the bills was the one you mentioned where landlords who have tenants who have not paid rent can take the unpaid rent and apply it as a tax credit?
It's
That
1410.
was Senate Bill 1410. Yeah.
Okay. And are either of Tony Atkins or Todd Gloria sponsors of those bills?
Yes.
The senator already voted for 1410. And to be clear, it's an opt-in bill. So
Sure.
landlords that want it can use it.
I get that.
That don't have to.
And do you know if those tax credits can be carried forward from year to year if they're not fully used in a particular year?
I believe they can be held on to and will have the option, right, of holding on to them, selling them, trading them.
Oh, selling them. Oh, okay, cool. All right, great, thanks. That's what I wanted to know. That's it.
Any other comments? Miller, Michaela, thank you. That was very informative. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. And I have the questions, so I'll get back to Fred with some answers soon.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're covering some good territory. So Margaret, we still have all we have now is sports arena redevelopment. So proposed concept.
Awesome.
Awesome. There you go.
Midway, I've been super invested in this project. I've been sitting in on all the meetings. There's been special meetings. There's been one big one was last night, actually. We were able to, it was really awesome that Kathy, gave us the heads up that there was going to be 2 presenters with the proposals, which I really enjoyed, because if any of you have, and again, as I get information, I'm going to send to you guys, feel free to join. I just really feel like you all as neighbors, community members should be involved and listen, not just PCB, being a PCPB board member, should be involved in this because it is going to be a huge, huge project. Lots of pluses, lots of good stuff coming down the pipelines, but lots of concerns. So we were able to hear both sides. We were given the opportunity to hear both proposals live via Zoom. The presenters gave their whole take, their vision, which basically I'll give you some updates. I took lots of notes for you guys, but I'll just give you the real meat and tater hardcore. I also want to say thank you to a few of you guys who did hop on with me last night. I think Mark, Corla, Mandy, there's a couple of you on. That just showed that the PCPB had a good presence in this meeting. So I really appreciate that. I was really proud of our team. Basically, the first presentation was David Malmuth. He spoke and presented that there's 3 collaborated parts to his project and presentation, which is really big deal. The project's vision, which included Challenge Athletes of San Diego, Sports Innovations, and Circulate San Diego. I found that quite interesting that they've collaborated with these groups to kind of bring the vision to fruition. The city is they're going to have a couple open houses. They mentioned it yesterday, but also I've been getting loads of emails now on some upcoming visual Zoom meetings and also online meetings where they're going to collect feedback from the community. That is amazing because, as we all know, that never really happens. So I'm really glad they're opening the doors, parties, both parts back from the community. A couple concerns that I just want to share with you guys, the presentations, and then the community board members went first for the Midway Planning Board. And the first presentation basically stated that it's going to be 1,500 residential units. There is going to be a sports venue. There is going to be a music venue, 2 separate deals. They did clarify that the music venue, one of the concerns was noise for the residents and the neighborhood. That was going to be an enclosed music venue. This arena is going to be their main priority for revision right off the bat since it's there and needs some beautifying. They've already been in talks with the San Diego Loyal. It is owned and operated by MSL's famous Landon Donovan. He owns the team. He had a vision, if you all remember, he had a vision, and actually a city petition and vote that was actually denied and didn't pass for soccer, I forget
City.
what it was called. Yeah, Soccer City, thank you. It was Soccer City, but that kind of fell through the loops, but they're gonna kind of try to revamp that and bring it back to incorporate with this first proposal and plan that was presented again by David. He also went on to say that they are currently, keyword currently, respecting the 30-foot height limit with their proposal. However, both parties did state that they will submit something that's a little bit more aggressive should Dr. Campbell's proposed waiving of the 30-foot limit get waived. They have an alternate option to be able to build above the 30 limit. That was a huge concern to everyone kind of in that meeting. The project literally will cost about $1 billion. The sports arena will get a new rendition to match the surrounding plan developments. The entire project will be about the experiences of Midway. The key ideas that they pulled for this project for proposal 1 had to do with the master plan. They did look at the master plan, the current master plan, in great detail, and they're planning their stuff into phases. So phase 1 is going to be the soccer stadium. Phase 2, the village. It's going to be a mixed village use, which will have residential and some retail. And then also they said that the ultimate focus is going to be the soccer stadium, remodel, blah, blah, blah. And then some of the concerns from the board was the stormwater issues in that area. I guess, and from previous Midway meetings, I've been attending them religiously now for 2 years. And Jim, you can back me up because you used to be the Midway liaison. The storm issue is a main thing down there at Midway, and really didn't have an answer for that. They basically said that Dave, in this first proposal, said that the landscaping artist for the project is looking into those issues. So he'll have a better answer for that. Homeless was also a concern. They said it would kind of create a conservancy team to manage the proposed parks that are going in. And they hope that the parks that are going into the sports arena area will be managed. They haven't found out the logistics because this is still in development mode, but they would hope that anywhere in that, if a park's going to be in that development, that it's going to have some sort of management team 24/7 there. They also, density was a main concern. Someone mentioned, what if that 30-foot limit gets tossed? The response was, well, they're going to make sure there's lots of parking, but at the end of the day, they see everyone using public transportation and cycling in that area. So they're basing their concepts and their developments into the future of not needing that much parking space in the Midway area. So the people were kind of saying good luck with that. And was working with Caltrans. They did promise, they didn't have a plan or an answer for traffic. We all know, of course, because we commute in that area. Just keep in mind, these people don't live in the area, that traffic is a concern going into the peninsula and Ocean Beach. So they did promise that they were going to work with Caltrans to improve relationship with them, also provide a better answer to be smarter about moving people around the point. So that's kind of going to be one of their brainchild goals, is to kind of, they want to implement, they want to be, I guess, they want to use this as an example that you really don't need to drive anymore, and be able to build and have more retail and units into communities. I mentioned water storm issue, music. The second proposal was ASM Global. Zach Adam was the speaker. I got to tell you, it was very disappointing. He kind of just threw it together. He was very unorganized, didn't answer questions. He basically, some important points for him. Oh, I have some numbers. The first presentation said affordable housing is going to be about 10%, but 10% is going to be prevailing wage too. And those are important numbers to know. And then again, the second proposal was very vague. He basically showed a couple samples of projects they have done in the past that are real high congested areas like Los Angeles, LA Live, he used that as an example, China, a couple other places that just was not focused to the community concerns and issues, and also that area. So the first proposal did do their homework and research, provided some good points, opened up, you know, the feedback to the community to really get, you know, the comments back. And the second proposal was vague. They are going to have some workshops again, as I mentioned before. So I will provide that to you, Fred, to share with our group, because I would love to see PCPB really involved in this, because it is going to affect us and it does affect many in our community. So I have, as Corla knows, I have shared this on my multiple community pages that I manage and Facebook. So Corla and Mandy, if you can also, and Mark as well. I think I covered the basics. I don't want to get into it too much, but the presentations were there. The community did share their input, and it's going to happen regardless. It's just a matter of us being able to provide our concerns and our feedback on what we want to see Midway.
Okay, well, thank you, Margaret, and definitely send me that information so I can share with the board, because it's clear, it's a huge project, and it definitely, they're our neighbors, right? So,
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to impact us. So I think Corla first, and then Mandy.
Yeah, all this, you can review all these projects online. I think the website, Margaret's posted it, but she'll have the website and Fred will have that. The Midway Planning Board was interesting meeting. They're telling us it's either 30 feet or parkland. The first presentation, MSED, had a webinar this morning, and so I know they're willing to do presentations and probably will have more. I agree with Margaret's assessment of Brookfield. It was very poor, no specific numbers or anything like that. What I'm hearing from the community is everybody's against change, not everybody, but a lot of people are against changing the 30-foot height limit. I got an email right before we started this meeting. But the only other comment I have, Margaret covered it pretty well, is on Zach Adams' presentation, the Brookfield very vague presentation. He spoke for 25 minutes and gave everybody about 5 minutes to speak. Yeah. The other presenters stopped at 15 and allowed comments. But Kathy Kenton, the chair of the Midway Planning Group, she jumped in. She sat back pretty much as chair and let the meeting happen. But she jumped right in on this one, and her comments were, no high rises here, and we do not want LA Live here. And that seemed to be what he was pushing, was that LA Live. Now, and a lot of people like that second proposal, but these are just the comments and feeling that I got from the meeting yesterday. And I don't have an opinion personally one way or another. That's just information that I heard yesterday I wanted to share.
Yeah. Thank you, Corla. I agree. The first presentation, I felt like they were prepared. They were very informed. I felt like they had listened to some of the inputs that had been from the community. The one concern that I did have with the soccer stadium and the parks was they had mentioned that it would be possibly like privately managed. And the issue that we have with our parks here on the peninsula and the city is that the park space is typically rented out to private sports clubs, and so it limits sometimes the ability for other community members to utilize those parks. So that was one concern that I had. And then with regard to the infrastructure mitigations that they promised that they would improve, I suggested that they put those in first as opposed to latter, just due to our already lack of infrastructure, and it needs much needed improvement. I think it would be set us up for some issues if they started the construction without making those investments into infrastructure first. The second presenter, again, in my opinion, I felt like he was talking about Hong Kong, LA, Sydney, everything but San Diego. He had no, the plan he gave us was an aerial view. It did not show anything to the fascia, the exterior of these buildings. He did say that the plan he showed us did provide, it was within the 30-foot rule, but part of his presentation was he was endorsing and asking us to endorse complete communities. And so he was a big advocate of that. His name was Zach. He's actually claims he's a Point Loma native, and I felt it's very interesting. He seemed to be disconnected with some of the issues that our community is experiencing, and the fact that he wants to densify at such an extreme rate, it's going to exacerbate the already existing issues of traffic and lack of infrastructure here on the peninsula. So those are my thoughts. Again, pros and cons, but again, the second one, I just felt like he was not prepared, and he almost didn't want to hear comments or input from the community. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mandy. Jim, and then Margaret.
I very, very much appreciate everybody who has been tracking these matters closely and everything, and appreciate the reports out from Margaret and Mandy. What I would like to kind of put out there for you to always keep in mind as you're reviewing these projects is to make sure that we can ascertain that it's consistent with the work that was done on the Midway Community Plan and the EIR that was associated with that approval. We spent a lot of time reviewing those. We spent a lot of time reviewing about freeway ramps that could be used as additional mitigation. We spent a lot of time, one of the specific comments we made in the AR comment letter was, what is exactly the zoning that this plan applies to that property, and is that what was assumed in all the travel forecasts, and Mandy, also in all the infrastructure demands for fire and all the other kinds of things and so forth. So the question, it seems to me, question one to be answered is this consistent with the assumptions and the land use that was called out in the Midway Community Plan adoption? Because it's a fresh plan, and they shouldn't be able to exceed the limits that were imposed by that. So that's just for all of us to kind of keep in back mind. There is a benchmark that we need to hold them to.
Jim, thank you. I think that's very helpful for everybody. Very good. Margaret, you're up.
Jim, because you have taught me, I thank you for that. And proposal one did state that their design and vision was based off the community master plan. So because you did teach me that, I was looking for that because I was going to ask. Proposal two, however, did not follow those guidelines. So I agree that is very important that they took the time to go by those master plans. So proposal one did. Really quickly too, one thing that kind of irked me a little bit was that they said, you know, they're going to put their focus on the sports arena, which is fine. That's because it's there and they're going to work with that first. But they also said farmers markets could be there. And then Kobe Swap Meet could go, you know, and continue to do its thing until they get that okay to keep building. And I think proposals to me at the end of the day are waiting on this 30-foot deal, which was kind of to me a little, I don't know, like, as I said, they're just kind of, they couldn't really give us much information based on this 30-foot deal. So yeah, so I just want to put it out there. The proposal one did address that farmer market, and if Kobe Swap Meet could still keep going until they decide to build further. So it's not going to just, if you hear anything out there, it's not going to always stay there. They're going to definitely build to the extreme in this area either which way. So yeah, I'm going to make that.
All right, I got Corla, then Mandy, and then I think we're going to try to wrap this up and move on. So, but it's been a very productive discussion.
It was my understanding that each of these groups were supposed to put together two proposals, one within the 30-foot height and one disregarding that, depending on what happened in November. And I'm not sure, from what I've seen online, that they've done that. MS, whatever the first one was saying 80 to 85 feet high. And my only comment here is that Midway Planning Group is for this. And don't forget, the post office is, half of the old post office is going to start demos soon as well. But the Midway Planning Group is in favor of all of these things going on in their group. I'm sure they have reservations and questions, but they seem to be in favor.
Okay. Mandy?
Yes, I did want to ask Josh. Yesterday during the presentation, I didn't have an opportunity to ask this of this individual, but the second RFP group, Zach Adams of Brookfield, he identified himself as the VP. And while he was explaining the entertainment and the shopping district that he had proposed to be in that development, he mentioned that Apple was really excited about this venture. And I wanted to know if you could expand about that interest. Is that them having interest in putting a store in that shopping complex, or is that them bringing a substantial amount of jobs to the community or the city of San Diego? I would like you to clarify that statement that he made yesterday, because I did not have the opportunity to question him.
I'm happy to ask your question, but I didn't say it, so I won't respond for him, but I'm happy to see if I can get an answer for your question. I did hear that. I imagine what he meant was they're trying to fill in a lot of the opportunities to fund their project, and I think he was alluding to Apple perhaps being a participant, but I don't know for sure. But I'm happy to ask.
Yeah, I would like clarification on what participation that he was discussing. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Andy, his contact information is also on the presentation if you want to email him yourself.
Yes, please email that to me.
So,
thank you, Marty.
Really quickly, my recollection of the Apple anecdote, that's when he was describing one of his other cities' developments. Perhaps it was the one from LA. He framed it around talking about, look, we want to engage with whatever community we're building with and take their input. But then he just kind of did a tangent into talking about how, oh, we were doing this development, and then that attracted things like Apple.
Yeah.
Matt's correct. Matt's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. And Margaret, thank you. That was very, very informative. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, let's go to government reports. And so I'm going to start.
Fred, really quickly, Brad looks really tired.
I know. Yeah. I think he wants to be chair again. Tracy, I'm going to let you go first because you're our neighbor from Ocean Beach, and we haven't got to talk to you yet, and we love Ocean Beach.
Well, thanks. We love you guys too. Just real quick, the last meeting, the board actually did weigh in on complete communities. We sent the motion to our electeds, and I believe Andrea also made quite a stir and many points at the CPC meeting. So I'm sure you guys know how we feel about complete communities. Also at the last meeting, I wanted to let you guys know that the board voted to send suggestions to the city for designated motorcycle parking on Voltaire, Santa Monica, and Newport. There's quite a few people in OB that have motorcycles, and we feel like having one motorcycle taking up one parking space, where we could have one parking space that we could give to 3 motorcycles, would actually be better for the community and our parking issues. So the board voted to go ahead and approve our plans for that. Also, I want to let you know that we have a ad hoc parks subcommittee that's coming up on the 21st. And the 2 parks that are on our agenda are the Spray Street Dog Beach Park, that whole green area that's over there. And then we're also going to be looking at Robb Field Athletic Park. And we're going to just look and see if we can come up with alternatives or better solutions for the space to be used, or things that, can make these 2 spaces more enjoyable for the community. And with the communities, plan with them trying to focus on parks and community parks, we thought that this would be a really good time to start looking at those. So if you want to attend that, that is on the 21st. And you can just send me an email and I'll send you a link to register for the meeting. We also have a transportation subcommittee meeting coming up on the 27th, and I don't have any firm ideas for the agenda yet, but there are a couple of things that are kind of floating around in my brain. One of them is discussing the need for a stop sign on Voltaire and Froude. You know, we're thinking about that. I also want to kind of look at our hit list that we've designated last year. We had a list of ideas that came from the community when we had the OB Street Fair booth. So we accomplished some of those goals last year, but we want to actually like reevaluate our list and kind of prioritize what we want to go for this year. So we're going to be going and doing that too. So I'd just like to invite everybody to attend those. Yeah.
Brad, you had a question?
Yeah, just to add, regarding Voltaire and Froude, that is already approved for a flashing beacon and a crosswalk, and the evaluation for the always stop is up at Awanda, a little higher up the hill, to catch the people before they start picking up their speed. So I know that there had been some talk with downtown about that, but I just wanted to just let you know that there's already something that's in place for that location because of the bus stops.
Okay.
And also, you know, the unfortunate situation with the skateboarder and all that. So there, yeah, a little, you know, block or two up to stop the cars rolling down that hill that start to speed. So just let you know they're looking at that intersection.
What did you say was already approved for Voltaire and Froude?
Voltaire, yeah. We had actually asked for that to be evaluated. What was it, Margaret? In 2017. And finally made it to the top. And there's a flashing beacon and a continental crosswalk that's been approved but unfunded at that site. Because there's the bus stop right there. It made it, you know, it's kind of a danger. We had it as kind of a dangerous intersection because of the blind coming from the north. It's a little blind coming there by the dentist's office.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really see around the corner there. So just to let you know, there's something in place already. And so I think the city pushed it up a couple blocks for
And
the
that's
four-wheel stop.
was that definitely at Froude, or was it?
Definitely at Froude and Froude and
okay.
yeah.
Froude.
Somebody else might.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and bring that up and just, you know, I also pulled the accident report for Voltaire over the last 3 years, and I wanted to share that with the committee as well, because, you know, it's one of those places that we know it's dangerous, but the accident reports aren't really showing it. So it's kind of, I don't know.
I've talked to the city about those accident reports. Sorry, Margaret. About those accident reports. I'm sorry, I just want to interject. They have to actually report it. So whether or not something happens there, because they may not have the stats, because people get hit all the time, and there's the police. I mean, they've got 3 traffic officers in the whole city at one time.
Yeah.
3. So they just don't make it to accidents.
At that particular location, it was actually kind of enlightening because there were 31 reported cases of injury at that location, but there was the one death, and the one death was the most recent one with the skateboarder. So,
well, good. I'm glad.
I think that was a pretty large indication.
That's a big number.
Problem at that intersection. So thank you for telling me, because that will help us make a decision if we want to push for what you guys already have. Like, you know, join on to the bandwagon and let's push.
Right.
Okay, cool.
Get the stuff funded.
Yeah.
How about Margaret? Let's let Margaret.
I was just going to reiterate with Brad. I got to tell you, I joined the Traffic and Transportation Committee 3 years ago with Brad when he first took over. And we have done so much work and homework in Point Loma, which also includes some of OB. So I know Brad isn't the chair anymore, but he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to traffic and transportation in our community. And he has already done all the researching and has talked to engineers and down in Sunset Cliffs. So I would highly recommend, if nice Brad would just be open to it, Tracy, pick his brain, because he's done a lot of the research and a lot of the tests, and we have spent 3 years on a lot of this stuff that could be on your list that can help you quite a bit. So I pick his brain if you get a chance.
Well, I mean, in this case, I'm kind of responding to the community outcry for a stop sign or something because of the safe order that got hit. And, you know, the thing about the community is that they're not as aware of things as the boards are. So it's good, you know, I'm glad that I announced some of my thoughts for the next transportation meeting, because that was one of the things that I was going to discuss. And I definitely don't want to add to the request that's already pending. I'd like to help it, but if there's already something that's happening, then we'll just support it, you know?
Yeah, no, we created a list that I can send to you that we've been working off, Brad, remember, for like
Oh, yeah.
3 years. We've been chipping away at this list.
We have a lot of letters that are on our website that you can refer to, that the board has approved. And, you know, I followed up with the city, but whether or not those projects actually, it was sort of like, you know, what does it take to get funded? Because we have multiple projects that are just sitting there dormant, which is kind of one of the reasons that I lost motivation to be on the committee, because we got all this stuff approved, but we've not seen any fruits of all of our efforts. So, and I also want to say Margaret has done a great job. She's the one that compiled all the stuff in the beginning and got us rolling. So
we definitely appreciate all the work by you and Margaret on traffic.
No, yeah, it's been great working with Brad, because it's a lot of work and it's important. Our safety is important. So I appreciate you, Brad, doing all that, and I hope you can kind of somewhat stay involved.
How about Robert?
I'm still here, Margaret.
Robert
Thanks a lot for
Jackson.
saying that. I appreciate you too.
Oh, Tracy, just real quick. It seems like the Point Avenue and Sunset Cliffs four-way stop is working better than I thought. Has there been any feedback on that?
You know,
within the community?
Yeah, as far as like the community chatter goes, some people got a little freaked out and they thought, oh, it's going to slow down Sunset Cliffs. And, you know,
that's what I assumed.
That's the point, right? It's to slow down Sunset Cliffs. So for the most part, people were just, you know, complaining about change. So, you know.
Well, what I was concerned it would create just a log jam, but it seems to be working okay. I just think the city has to work on West Point, Loma, and Voltaire on timing those two lights to work with each other better.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is the traffic is so different in the summer than it is in the off season as well. So, I mean, there might be a log jam going on, but you know, right now we're not at peak summer, I don't think either. So, you know, yeah, I haven't heard much except for, you know, oh my God, there's a stop sign. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna go. We're gonna move on. Thank you, Tracy and Josh. Go to District 2. Is there anything else that you've just been the star of the whole meeting? So I don't know if you have anything to add.
There's a lot going on. It's all good. I just want to briefly touch on the conversation about Midway. I want to thank Margaret and Corla for definitely attending the planning group meetings. It's always appreciative to have. It's easier for us as well to have everyone in the same room at the same time hearing the information. It's just it's awesome to have that. I just want to give a little perspective on the timeline of what we can expect. What we're going through right now is a conversation for a master lease developer. So we're not really necessarily on a project specific level right now where we're talking about whether we're going to have a stadium or we're not, or whether it's 65 feet or 75 feet. What the city is looking at right now is who they should begin lease negotiations with. And so I anticipate that we will have that initial answer probably by the end of July. And what that means is the city and that master developer or that lease negotiation process begins. And then once they start that process, that's when they talk about a lot of these specific details. That will come back to council, committee, and then council, and probably the planning commission as well, once they have reached an agreement. I don't anticipate that happens until next year. So, you know, by the time they get through all that negotiations, and who knows, that person might pull out, they might
who knows what we're going to end up with. Once that gets to an agreement, we will have the project specific details on the stadium. So, or whatever happens, right? So I just wanted to let folks know, the master lease developer will come back and propose specific project level details that will require an additional EIR, public input, all of that. And that could be 5 to 7 years out. I mean, who knows the timeline on that. So I just wanted to give a little perspective that the concepts are exciting, but I just want us to be also focused on the people, which you all were really referring to, which was important. So
thank you, Josh.
Sure.
Thank you, Josh.
No problem.
Do you have a follow-up question on that?
Well, just a real quick comment. The comment period ends July 20th. Is that correct? I mean, that seems to place the urgency on it. I think that's where we're confused then.
The comment period is that's correct, but it is not the final comment period and is really on who you would like the city to work with on their specific concepts. So
social media is not taking it that way. I know you're on next door, and it's blown up with this whole thing. They're all freaking out.
that's why I'm here. Happy to help.
All right, Margaret.
Happy to clarify that. I do want to, and I've let the city know that, and I don't know the best way to get that out, but I do think we should let folks know that this isn't, again, a longer process. This is about this is really the first interview, who we want the city to work with in their lease negotiation. This is the first round.
Okay, Margaret, follow up.
Hey, Josh, thank you for that so much. I brought that because in previous meetings, that is really important to communicate to the community.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. Thank you. I have a question for you though, because in previous meetings with Midway that I've attended, they've kind of been up in the air with proposals. At any time, more proposals can come through the hopper. Are these the only 2 that have been submitted? Because I did know last meeting with Midway, they stated that more can come. And then Kathy just invited these 2 to present at Midway.
Yeah.
Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so there are 4 proposals submitted to the city for redevelopment.
Awesome.
2 of them were responsive, and those were the 2 that we see at the Midway Planning Group meeting. Those are the only 2 being considered currently.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you go through the RFP, the actual the actual PDF document, it outlines what the city deems responsive to meet, and it's not just what you saw in the pretty pictures of the buildings in the stadium, it's also financials and references, et cetera. So it's very possible that these 2 also don't make it and we start the process over, right? So, I think it really truly just depends on what ends up happening with the lease negotiation and how that takes foot. So
thank you for that clarification, because that's been a little vague.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Well, Josh, thanks. I really appreciate you attending tonight.
Oh, no problem. Sorry, I do have just one more item. I have exciting conversations about medians down Rosecrans, if anyone wants to talk about that. Yeah, get excited, everyone. Real quick update. There's an old Route 209 fund that's from old state funding that the city had access to. I believe it or not, I want to thank Conrad. I want to thank Conrad Ware from the mayor's office and the council member for working together to find a solution. The Point Loma Association's also been involved a little bit. Starting Monday, actually, we'll see construction on 10 curbed medians from Canyon to North Harbor. I believe they're starting on Canyon, is what I understand, and working their way to North Harbor. They will change them from the asphalt concrete and move them to a more like rock blanket. So they'll be more flat. So it's basically a curbed beautification project. So you will see some traffic configurations change while they're working on each of these medians. So they will block 1 lane on each side of the median while they're working. And as they move I'm pretty sure they're moving north to North Harbor from Canyon. I believe that they're starting on Monday. Don't quote me on that. That's what I'm told, but that's when I think they're going to start, and that it should be completed by September. So I believe it's a quick turnaround.
So there isn't any medians on Cannon. Are you going to be inserting medians?
I believe it's not. It's from Canyon. I think there's one right in front of Harbortown, isn't there?
That's Rosecrans.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on Rosecrans from Canyon to North Harbor. I apologize.
see. Okay.
My apologies.
All right, Brad, do you have a question?
No, yeah, I was going to ask Josh, are they going to be making them any wider? I mean, we in traffic, that's a terrifying corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And we had tried to get a flashing beacon and a crosswalk there, but they didn't have enough pedestrian traffic to meet the criteria because everyone's too scared to walk across that. So I'm just wondering, is it going to be, are they going to be wider so people can actually feel like they're because you feel like you're going to get picked off when you're out on one of those little things?
I don't think that they're going to be wider based on the traffic regulations for that specific street, but I also don't think that they want people to necessarily stop on them. But
good luck.
Yeah, no, I know that's going to be, but it's going to be beautiful. So that'll be nice. I think it's also going to help with the weeds that are growing through there too, which will be helpful. What section, Brad, are you talking about that you wanted a flashing beacon on? Are you talking about?
Well, what we were trying to do at one point was we were trying to get a pedestrian corridor from Roseville to the Bay.
Yes, please.
Excuse me? Yeah, it was Roseville to the Bay, and one of them, it was going to be, we did get one approved at Emerson and Scott Street, a flashing beacon and a continental crosswalk, but we were also trying to get Emerson at Rosecrans because that was halfway between the light at Harbor Drive and halfway between the light at Shelter Island. But that one didn't get approved yet. So again, just trying to have a connection for the community to the water. And also that intersection also goes right there to Fisherman's Landing and Point Loma Seafood and all that. It was just trying to make the neighborhood a little bit more pedestrian. So yeah, it was in that area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Corla?
Josh, can you put out some kind of a thing on Nextdoor to let, like a little press releasing to let the neighborhood know about that? I can't take good enough notes to do that. And then I'm just going to toot my horn for a second. That during this pandemic, a few years ago, I spent a year and a half getting those touch sensor crosswalk buttons put in, and everybody, I can't tell you how many people have thanked me for doing that with this pandemic. Nobody wants to touch anything, so just funny little.
All right, good job, Corla. All right, we're gonna move on because it's getting late. Michaela, do you have anything else that you would like to add to the meeting?
I was telling Miller I needed to shorten my report a little bit. I wanted to introduce myself again. I know that I've only been able to attend a couple meetings. And so, since March, our office has been focusing on constituent services. Both Miller and I are the points of contact in terms of EDD in our office. So we've been helping thousands of constituents with their unemployment claims. Also since March, I wanted to give Mandy a shout out. With her assistance and her advocacy, we were able to convince San Diego Unified School District to put a food distribution site in the peninsula and in the coastal communities, which is located at Dewey Elementary. So, tell your neighbors Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If they have students or kids between, toddlers to 18 years old, they can pick up food over the summer. I did want to mention, in case the board doesn't know, I think I mentioned this during February's meeting, but Assemblymember Gloria is authoring legislation, AB 2731, to help facilitate the transfer of land between the Navy and Sandag for the NAVWAR site. My colleague Randy did send Brad some updated information today. I can forward that to Fred, who can forward it on to the board. Any feedback, you're more than welcome to email me individually. Also wanted to touch on today, the state auditor released her 2019-2020 audit. And one piece of it was Assemblymember Gloria's request on the Air Pollution Control Board. They did find that the quality of air in San Diego needs to be changed from moderate to severe. And this is, this audit was conducted prior to this weekend's Navy ship fire. So there'll be a push to kind of change who is on the Air Pollution Control Board. Right now it is the County Board of Supervisors. They've been failing to include environmental health members. And so wanted to touch on that. And then lastly, in terms of DMV, for those who are the age of 70 and older, and their license is set to expire between March and December of this year, they will receive a 1-year extension. So there's no need to rush to the DMV to renew their license.
That's cool.
So yeah, tell your neighbors again, they may not know, the media hasn't really been highlighting it as much. If anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. That's it.
Can you post your email again?
Yes, I will post it on the group chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
How about Miller? Miller, you got anything else for us?
I do, but I'm gonna be really quick.
Okay, good.
First off, I just want to say it's really great to see everyone. From my start off as community rep for this area, this was one of my first 2 meetings I was representing, so it's just cool to see everyone after the hiatus. I'm now technically a Point Lomond because I'm just east of Froud, but I'm also an Abetian, so I like to say I dabble in both communities. Okay, here's my quick report. The governor signed the budget. It protects school funding and health and human services funding, and it maintains the $300 million increase to homelessness funding, and it responds to our $54 billion deficit due to COVID. We had a large surplus at the beginning of the year before this all happened. In terms of the protests, the Pro Tem has been very supportive of the protests, of course not the violence, believes in de-escalation, demilitarization, more outreach and community policing. Finally, as Michaela was saying, we've been helping lots and lots of people with unemployment insurance. We're here to help. Reach out to either of our offices. And there's lots of COVID-19 resources on our website. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Perfect. Thank you, Miller. Good to see you back too. Hey, Robert, did you want to make any announcements related to the Point Loma Association?
Just what I understand, obviously, there won't be a fundraising dinner, so they're working on doing some media interactive event to raise funds for the association. And I guess we'll probably hear more about that shortly down the road.
Okay. Is there anybody else that needs to make an announcement that I've missed? Good, good. All right, we will go to non-agenda public comment. Corla, do we have any of that?
Do we want to bring that email?
Can I just jump in and make an announcement during this time?
Sure, that would be good.
Okay, well, my name is Ms. Light. I'm the Community Planning Liaison Officer for Naval-based Point Loma. I do have a couple quick items I would like to share with the community. If you were at the Midway Pacific Highway Community Planning Group meeting, I apologize because this will be a repeat information. The first item I wanted to share was that there will be a change of command at Naval Base Point Loma. Our current commanding officer for installation, Captain Brian Dixon, he will be released by Captain Kenneth Franklin. Captain Dixon has reached the end of his assignment, so there is a change of command on 24th. Due to COVID-19, this will be live streamed on Facebook. So if you haven't attended a Navy change of command, this is a really great opportunity. It's pretty neat, actually. And the second thing I wanted to share with the community was that, as some of you may know, Navy is in the process of developing an environmental impact statement in support of Old Town campus revitalization efforts to provide new facilities for NAPWR. I did present to this group back in November and provided the initial details on this effort. I just wanted to say that the next step in this process was a draft EIS, which was going to be initially available at the end of summer. However, due to COVID-19 and Navy wanting to do a more thorough job, we need some additional time. So now the draft EIS will be available at the end of 2020. As we get closer, I will be able to provide an exact date, and during which time the community will have an opportunity to take a look at this project and all the environmental impacts and provide comments back to the Navy. And then Lastly, I am the planning liaison between the base and the community. I will leave my contact information in the chat. If there's anything Naval Base, Point Loma related, any concerns that the community wants to reach out, we are available and we're here to listen. So we definitely encourage that. That's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I appreciate that, and we like having the Navy be a good neighbor.
Thank you.
So, Corla, do we have any public comment?
Well, that was, I was going to announce that command change because I heard that yesterday, but thank you, Michaela, or Muska, I mean, for commenting and being part of our meeting. My comment was how many wonderful representatives Midway Group had, and, you know, we've got them too. We've got Josh and Miller and Michaela and Muska, and you know, it's very nice to have all you here. Thank you so much. My public comment is that the city, I understand we're in the middle of a pandemic, but you know, I don't get out much these days, but I was on the freeway last week and it looks like a third world country, the trash and everything else, and the dog poo and the mask and the stuff in the neighborhood. And I don't know what can be done about it, but I'm just completely disappointed in that. And I'd like to thank Mandy and Margaret and Tracy and everybody that's been to all these meetings, and Brad for being such a wonderful interim chair. He's done a lot of work. It is a lot of work, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and we all just need to keep up, you know, and it's tough. So I would like to thank everybody for their participation and everything that's gone on. And thank you, Fred, for stepping up to chair.
Thank you to Corla. Corla's done a great job, as you can see, and she's been indispensable and for me asking questions for months.
Good job, Corla. So do we have any other commissioner comments before we, I just have one more thing, which is sort of setting the meeting schedule.
Oh.
Which I'll just say, since I'm going to say it, but I think we've missed so much, right? That we need to meet regularly, you know, and so my plan is to have meetings every month. And I think that, you know, I mean, this meeting is symbolic. It's been enjoyable for me to see us all talk about real issues that affect the community. And so my plan would be, unless there's objections, is to just have a meeting every month and until we get to December, and then we'll figure out whether we want a Christmas break or not.
We're not going dark in August. We all have vacations.
Vacation with us on Zoom.
Yeah, Carnival Cruise Line is open.
That's cold. I don't go out of the house.
Fred, I have one more thing. Josh, you announced yesterday a meeting July 21st or something, and I didn't get it and I don't remember. I think it's a height limit. Could you please enlighten us on that, please?
Yes, I'm so sorry. That's the city council will take on the ballot measure for the amendment to the coastal height limit overlay zone in the Midway plan on the 21st. That's the last,
need to be at
what I expect to be the last step in the process to get it to the November ballot. Thank you, Corla.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, anything else? And as the interim chair, again, I'm just here to facilitate and help everybody. So if people have issues and questions, let me know. I'm here to help, and I'm help you all. So thank you. Again, I really enjoyed having a substantive conversation on everything. So thank you, guys. And
good job.
Good job.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need that? No? All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn. We're done. Thank you. Thank you. Great job.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, Brian. Good to see you. Tell Kathy hi.
Wow. Hi. Corla.
Okay. That's just me and you. Brian Silva, I used to work with his wife for many years, so I'm surprised to see him because they're actually in the Midway group. Well, that went great. What do you think? It was long, but man, it was good, huh?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, there were some pretty tense moments.